What is going on, everybody? Excited about this stream. I am popping out a new overlay that I'm excited about to go with an exciting Bears game that we get to cover. A lot of exciting stuff here after this Week 16 game, headed into Week 17, and I can't wait to break it down. Now, I am, again, really excited about this. I know that I didn't necessarily communicate that I would be off last week, so that in and of itself, I am so sorry that I didn't come through for that. I was taking the holidays off. I'm sure plenty of y'all were too, but I'm excited to be back here now. Can y'all hear me okay? Curious about how everything sounds and whatnot, because Mike is over here now instead of being right in my face, but I've still got everything else because I've moved over from my laptop, and I am one last time excited to cover this. Now, as we get everything rolling, I do want to throw out a couple of just overall thoughts, because one thing that I've noticed tends to happen in these streams is that things pick up as we get closer and closer and closer to, I don't know, about like 9:30, and then all of a sudden everybody's in asking me questions about the things that I covered right at the start. So we might as well start with some just overall thoughts, and then we can get into really digging into the nitty gritty. So I'll talk about both the Vikings game and this game, and especially what I think we saw from Jacksonville, like Chicago versus Jacksonville, that really ought to carry forward with us and potentially give us a shot against one of the best teams in the NFL. And I don't want to sugarcoat that, because this Packers game, I've seen a lot of people talk about how it is, and I quote, the perfect test for the Bears. Well, if you like facing the best team in the NFL, I totally agree with you. But right now, I would have definitely rather faced the Browns or the Steelers, or heck, even the Bills. Like a 10-11 game winner, the Colts, another great example, a very solid contender level team, but maybe not one of those top 4, top 5 teams. Heck, I might have even faced the Seahawks over facing the Packers. Is it right up there with the Chiefs in terms of teams I don't want to face right now? And that's just at least how I'm seeing it. But they are who we're facing, and I am a big believer in rivalry games where you never know what's going to happen in a rivalry setting. So who knows? Maybe things were I'm always a believer that you've got a shot. There's a reason you play the games on Sundays, but I did want to get that out, that especially if we hit, or we could talk about the donation stuff later, but I do want to do a Packers preview if we get there. Don't have any idea what the interest level is for that, but put that aside. What the main thing I was coming into this Jacksonville game wondering was, are the Bears going to trot out the same offensive game plan that they've been running for weeks now? Because what the Bears had been doing against Detroit, against the Texans, against Minnesota, is that they were running the same basic levels concept that they would run, or that a lot of teams run in high school, and that Trubisky's really good at reading. Let me find a quick, just basic huddle example, and I'll draw it out for you, and then we can go dig for one later. But so, I need a single back. We will dig through and find it, because the Bears use this thing all the time. Perfect. Yeah, here we go. So what the Bears will do all the time is that they'll pull somebody in motion just like this across this way. And if that's where the motion is, plenty of times they'll have this guy leak out. The motion man will leak out into the flat, with somebody coming around from this side on that level, and then somebody else streaking downfield and cutting across, so that you have a high, a mid, you guys can see I have more control now, and a low read. And that high, mid, low pattern is extremely popular, not only in this offense, but it's a great way to bake in plenty of Trubisky's, plenty of the things that Trubisky's really good at. And that's what the Bears have been running as their primary passing concept pretty much since Detroit, I'd say. And the Texans didn't do a very good job of stopping it. You might remember that the motion man that they pulled across was consistently the guy that Trubisky would find. He'd pick up like 8 yards after catch, and people started defending it because it's the same concept over and over and over, and Trubisky was getting good at administering the ball, directing it, and he started finally moving on and hitting the mid-level read, which actually, to draw it better, if the low one goes there, the mid one tends to be about 10 yards downfield, so about there-ish. And Trubisky started distributing the ball to that middle route in Minnesota, and I was really excited because, okay, so that means Trubisky's developing some confidence, he's getting some feel for this, let's see how this thing starts to move on going forward. But against Jacksonville, the Bears didn't just continue to do what they had been doing. The Bears flat out threw in a ton of wrinkles that show on tape that they are much more than the team that had been playing Minnesota, which is going to sound corny because I'm saying that about us beating the Jacksonville Jaguars, but I want to walk you through some play examples. Let's just dive in now. We're ready. We're rolling. Let's break down some film because I was really excited to see a lot of what they were able to do. Because see, the Bears offense started out with a drive that was fairly ho-hum, I would say overall. They drew an offsides, which Trubisky's really good at. You can see that here. Then they continued to move down the field until they finally had this play right here where Allen Robinson. There should be a way to go. Depends on what you call full screen. This is as full as I think it's going to get, but I'm not 100% sure. At the very least, this chat bot that I have added into the screen should allow you to see what the chat is saying. And as a reminder, if you catch me looking over here, you guys are over here, so that's me reading the chat, and then of course the webcam's back this way. But so anyways, the Bears offense was fairly ho-hum until Allen Robinson caught this low pass and took it about 20 yards forward because Allen Robinson's the man. We can walk through this later, but Allen Robinson had, if I'm remembering correctly, 4 third down conversions out of 6 and one of the 4th down conversions. So he was the man when it came to big downs, and this play sparked the Bears offense and then immediately led to a really, really nice run. I think it's immediately after. Let's see if I've got my memory correct. But if it is, then this run was clinical. So, no, okay, they go with this Mooney run. That doesn't get much. And yeah, we're going to have to figure out the Nightbot stuff. So bear with me as we test out new streaming stuff right here. But because I know Elon and another person that I know this bot better than I do, I am fairly new to this. So the Bears then pop out this run right here where it looks like Montgomery's not going to get anything and suddenly he's racing down the sidelines. And I have to talk about this because right after that Allen Robinson play, which was a much more individual effort, ball was fairly low, the Bears put on effectively a blocking clinic where what I want you to watch in particular, Cole Kmet's going to take on Miles Jack right here. Then Alex Bars is going to chip his man, move to the mid-level, chip Cody Whitehair's man right here when he carries him down here, and then Jimmy Graham is going to usher out to the sidelines, and I will show you exactly what he does. So the main people, again, that I want you to watch are Cole Kmet and Alex Bars because they beast on this play. So let's get this clear. And when you watch, you're going to see again Alex Bars throws an assist right here, which doesn't look like a big deal, but it helps Sam Mustipher get control of his man, and then as the play moves forward, Cole Kmet takes on that linebacker right there. Bars moves to the second level, and all of a sudden, you have a small running lane, but a running lane nevertheless. And now I want you to watch Jimmy Graham. So once Montgomery starts to roll out into that lane, you're going to see that both Cole Kmet and Jimmy Graham get their men turned. And part of that's due to Montgomery's running. He helps them out a lot. But Jimmy Graham seals that edge really nicely, and all of a sudden, bam, there's David Montgomery roaring down the sidelines for a beautiful 25-yard gain. And I want to back this up one more time because the whole point is me wanting to talk through that the Bears offense has come a long way, and we can walk through some of their struggles later, but I don't think that's fair. Like we had a 41 41 offensive point day. Let's talk about some positives first. And from there, the Bears, or so again, Bars does a great job of managing his assignment, chips that man. Montgomery right here. Now let's watch the runner, because a lot of people don't watch the line. Now watch the runner. And so when Bars at this point blocks this guy, you're going to see David Montgomery feint into this hole to help out Cole Kmet over here against Myles Jack, where he's going to shimmy this way and then break back out to the left. Again, watch for that inside shimmy where Adrian Peterson does it all the time. Did you catch it right there? It's a little hard to see with this all 22 angle, but that shimmy has shifted Myles Jack onto he pushed his weight onto this side of the field, and I think the corner, in fact, is going to try to break inside off of it, which helps both tight ends get control of their men. If you want to see more of this is an absolutely classic Adrian Peterson move. A quick shift before bouncing a totally different direction that sets his blockers up nicely. I wish we could look from the back, Elon. These are the only two angles that the NFL gives us. Unfortunately, I wish they gave us both end zone cams, but they don't. This should show it nicely. So again, watch him right here, and you're going to see an inside shimmy. He steps there, but he comes up right here. You see that ball extend as he cuts, or he looks like he's going to break it up the middle, then cuts the ball right back outside. Suddenly, both tight ends magically have control of their men. It's not magic. Montgomery sets him up, and from there, he's ripping and roaring down the sidelines. David Montgomery has been an outstanding running back. He helps out his line. His line helps out him. I'm having a great time watching this, or like watching this running attack and the way, and what it has done. And you know, it's funny, DJ, you talk about how he's so close to breaking it, and you're totally right. Like, he might have been able to run it for a touchdown if he was a step faster, but at this point, I will take the chunk plays. This Bears offense is trying to move in chunks of 8 to 20 yards, like max, and that's just how it's going to have to work. And that means the Bears have to make more plays. But you know what? Again, talking about what the offense does, at this point, they haven't changed anything. At this point, I'm just sitting here saying, okay, so what are they going to do? What's new? Well, the Bears come out and they run that play action levels concept with an important wrinkle. So I want you to watch the play first. You're going to see Trubisky find Jimmy Graham wide open, but how in the world does old Jimmy Graham, right? How does he get almost a full bubble of space along the sidelines with what seems to be nobody near him? Let's go back and watch. I think you're going to like what you see. So let me take you through this play and you'll catch it. What the Bears are going to do is that they're going to pull Cole Kmet across just like normal, right? They're going to have Darnell Mooney cut or cut across the middle of the field, and then they're going to have Allen Robinson run an in and out route. Are you catching what I'm seeing? It is a high, mid, low route. So Jacksonville's ready for this. They're going to have Myles Jack, who is, but at this point, it's fairly standard. So then they're going to have Myles Jack, who's an underrated linebacker, really good at what he does. Shadow Mooney right here. He's going to sit in zone coverage and drift because they're waiting on it. They know that every run could be play action at some point. Then of course they're going to have this corner kick out into the flat and this corner take the high route. So they think they've got everybody covered. But what they don't know is that the Bears have thrown an extra wrinkle into this, and Jimmy Graham, as you can see right here, doesn't actually have anybody on him. So the flat defender right there has to stick to Cole Kmet because Trubisky, credit to him, does a great job. Let me make this a little better. Trubisky does a great job keeping his eyes on Kmet so that this defender has to stick with him, and even looks back towards Mooney a little bit later, but so with that in mind, this defender sits still, and Jimmy Graham, again, keep your eyes on the guy who catches the ball. He's just going to leak out into the middle of the defense with nobody near him. Like, this is a very nice little wrinkle to the levels concept because the entire Jacksonville defense was set and ready to flow to the right. If you take them all the way back, the defense is set up with just enough men to this side where they think as long as they've got a couple of guys right here, that they should be able to all flow in this direction with the Bears play action attack and take away all the options. But what ends up happening is that the Bears, of course, push Graham up the field, and Trubisky's got a wide open throwing option who toe taps and goes out of bounds. Might have been able to get up the field if that's what he was going for, but on, I don't even know what down and distance it is, 1st and 10 apparently, Graham just decided that he was going to hop out of bounds, which, I mean, hey, okay. But I hear what you're saying, Jonathan, but it's really key that we make sure that we're aware that this Jacksonville Bears game isn't just the Jaguars giving the Bears everything they wanted. Actually, the Bears were given a pretty good fight here. They didn't run the ball well from the start of the game. It took them a little while outside of that 25-yard scamper, and the Bears didn't ever really run their normal play action levels because a lot of that stuff was taken away, and the Bears knew that, so they threw this wrinkle in. I think it is actually fairly impressive from a schematic standpoint what the Bears were able to add to their offense, and that's why I'm excited about it, and it's why I want to go through some of these plays, because what the Bears are able to do when you do this stuff, to be clear, is that all of a sudden you're able to commit an extra defender, or you're able to force the Jaguars to push an extra defender into this, or the play side of the field, such that if they think Trubisky could roll out this way, or frankly, even if he could roll out this way, they've got to make sure that they might need to have up to 4 passing defenders ready, so that they can make sure that they stop all the Bears' options. It changes the way defenses operate. Put another way, keeps them guessing. And credit to Trubisky for going through the read and finding things. But yeah, it's exactly like you're saying, DJ. They keep progressing in the right direction, and I'm not about to kick and yell about that right now. I know a lot of people kind of want to declare the season over. We will see. Who knows? You never have any idea whether John Wolford's going to pull something out or not, but there's a lot of ways that this game, or that this week, could go. We will get there when we get there. And Shell Bullet, I would say that he gets about 4 reads on this one, because he could go short, he could go mid, he could go long, and he can find the wheel. But let's go through a couple more examples, because in a little bit later, the Bears pull out the same play, and I'm sure you remember it, where they're going to run literally the same action, and it's going to work again. So keep your eyes on Jimmy Graham there on the top of your screen, as he gets totally wide open and forces Jacksonville to have to account for him with this nice 30-yard gain. It's exactly what we saw before. In this setting, you've got Miller coming across. He draws that flat defender with Jimmy Graham going up the field as the wide receiver carries it. So he's in a space all by himself, and at that point, sure, you'll take it. But when you can get old Jimmy Graham wide open in space like this, you know you're doing something right from an offensive standpoint, and it's a nice wrinkle again on a Bears play action concept that they've used so often that they can start to iterate on it. But that's not all the Bears were able to do. There are one more thing before we talk about one more play action. Yeah, no, you know what? We'll skip straight to it. Then the Bears also threw another wrinkle. So at this point, all we've seen is that the Bears have taken that usual wheel route concept, right? So one more time, if you've got this guy leaking out into the flat and Mooney coming across and Allen Robinson going here and out, this is that high, medium, low concept. All the Bears really did was that they leaked a guy out into that area. So big whoop, right? Is this something to really just yeah? Is this something to cheer for? Well, as a matter of fact, when the Bears do what they're about to do, yeah, it's exciting to see what they're able to do, or it's exciting to see what they're able to accomplish here, because if you take a look at this play, the Bears fake what they're doing with Allen Robinson still running the deep route. The 2 Jacksonville linebackers drop in to cover a wheel route that isn't there anymore, and you may notice that Mooney is running up the field. Well, why is he doing that? What in the world is going on? In case, I'm perfectly fine for it. If you're modding for me, go ahead. Anyways, what the Bears are doing here is that they have Darnell Mooney fake this route as if he's going to come across the field, but then at that breaking point, he is going to what's called whirl back around, as he's going to bend that route into basically an S, and from there run right back along the end zone line. Let's take a look at this play in full motion. But what it does is, especially against cover one setups, it's going to generate a one-on-one with Darnell Mooney running to the corner of the end zone, and that's something you want, your speedy wide receiver, which is exciting. Remember, this whole play is geared to get the Jacksonville defense flowing this way. And honestly, this corner does a pretty good job of stopping Darnell Mooney from really getting wide open. Like, I would say that Darnell Mooney doesn't run the greatest route in the world, because he could have easily beat his man into the corner, and he doesn't quite get there. But that said, it's still, like somebody said in the chat, a pretty sweet whirl concept, as Trubisky were like options right out to the right. The cover one safety has his eyes on Robinson, because why the heck would he be looking to this backside? And from there, the Bears are able to immediately set and throw, and the pass is good enough to generate pass interference. In fact, Darnell Mooney makes a pretty sweet one-handed catch out of bounds, but it gets enough yards to put the Bears right on the goal line, and then, of course, not the offsides, but we do have to watch this the sad Cole Kmet handoff, where we might as well watch it. I know everybody was like, Nagy's calling plays again. Keep your eye on Jermaine Ifedi, 74 right here. He whiffs a block that I don't know what he would have done, or what would have happened had he hit it, but he doesn't, and the Bears lose 4 yards. Again, keep your eyes right here. You'll notice that he lets the tackler straight through the offensive line. Kmet gets hit in the backfield. Probably not what you want to see. But yeah, that one, probably don't want to use that again. I definitely don't, or it's such a weird play, because at least what I have seen, and you guys know I'm big on this, like, big difference between like execution and play calling. So had Jermaine Ifedi hit this block right here, I still don't think Cole Kmet beats the linebacker in a race to the edge, but they're at the half-yard line, so maybe. At the same time, I understand literally anybody saying, no, they're at the half-yard line. Run it with Darnell Mooney, and I'm not going to blame you. Like CV Omega says, there's definitely an aspect of, like, did this thing work in practice? I don't know if it did, especially with Ifedi seemingly trying to get to the second level to stop the linebacker that he still doesn't get to, but, well, heck, I don't really know. But so somebody talked about how the whirl concept we talked about a second ago looks exactly like what the Packers used to beat us. You're right. In that case, oh, did I say Mooney? I meant Montgomery. So the idea, in case anybody's curious, have you seen The Princess Bride? Yes or no? You remember that setup, or that thing where in The Princess Bride, right near the end, it's spoiler alert. I don't think I'll spoil it. Never mind. The character, I cannot remember his name, but the slimy, schemy character talks about, well, if you do this, then I'll do this, and then you'll do this, and then I'll do this, and then I would do this, and then you'll do this, so I'm going to take this. You remember that scene? That's Matt Nagy sometimes. Like, what he has as a bad habit, to be totally candid, is that he thinks that he can catch the whole Jacksonville defense unawares, because he's going to fake the obvious handoff to to Montgomery and pull Kmet across the line of scrimmage, and he'll just walk in for a touchdown. Nobody will see it coming, when I think we can agree sometimes a little bit of predictability is just not that bad. And this is absolutely a scenario where running it right up the gap, where I know nobody's a Leno fan, but if you just, like, avoid Rashad Coward, who is back in the game, but so if you just push this play right up here with Mustafa and Bars down blocking, and Leno and Whitehair down blocking, I think you could jam in a half yard. But it's just one opinion. The point is to go back to the whirl concept. The idea, by the way, again, Audrey, Coward's in on this because they're trying to suggest that a jumbo formation is going to want to go this way to catch them all unawares. It's all a lot of attempt to be sneaky, and the Jacksonville defense just doesn't really care. Because remember, defenders don't know the play. Like, they don't know the play that you're about to run. So if you call a big fake, then they're not thinking too hard because they're not trying to guess everything. They're reacting to what's in front of them. In this case, they did knocked it down for 3 yards. But one thing that I want to talk about is, so somebody talked about how a whole lot of these plays are, one of the plays was kind of stolen from Green Bay. Well, it's not just the plays, it's kind of the whole offensive identity. One thing that I think is really impressive is that the Bears have gone right back to what they did in week 1, which is going to sound ridiculous because this should be a brand new offense, right? Like, this should be totally new stuff that the Bears have never done. Why would we be doing something that we had already done? Well, we've kind of gone back to what we were doing at the start of the game, or at the start of the year, and it's very McVay-esque, where we have packaged in tons of these tight, condensed sets that hide what the offense wants to do. In this case, like normally in a spread setup, obviously, you're going to have guys going from sideline to sideline, and in this setup, can anybody guess what play it is that the Bears run out of this? Right? Is it I know they're in the shotgun, but is it a handoff to Montgomery? Is it play action with potentially that levels concept that you know they like to run, with potentially motion over here and the high-low? What do you guys think they're going to do? DJ, I don't know if you're just cheating, but you actually nailed it. Yeah, okay, there you go. What the Bears run out of this is a bubble screen, and that bubble screen right here actually manages to, assuming that the blocks get hit, get the 2v2 that the Bears want, where if they hit those blocks, Mooney is off to the races. Now, unfortunately, Mooney actually drops a pass, so nothing happens. But if you take a look at where he's standing as he dropped it, like, he's going to screech right on up the field had he gotten it. And in case you're wondering whether I'm crazy or just being too optimistic, the Bears come back to it later and run it again, and this time it works. So let's go to it real quick. Exactly, CV. It's an easy and fast 10 yards. Once again, they line up in this shotgun set. Once again, they've got a tight end and Allen Robinson with, I think Mooney's right here in this case, and the Bears run this quick little bubble screen that gets the 2v2. Receivers hit their blocks. Mooney makes a great move after the catch, and whoosh, they get right up the field for that nice and easy 10 yards. There are wrinkles to this offense that are really exciting because as they open up this playbook, they're able to threaten the defense with more than just what they'd been doing. And again, that's a great setup. This is actually quite good from Darnell Mooney. Like this is so cool because a lot of receivers, so one thing receivers are really known for is that they want to get outside ASAP so that they don't get hit. That's the common moniker when it comes to receivers. So what Mooney does here that's really impressive is you're actually going to see him attack Robinson's man right there with a quick little like 4-step move to freeze him and help Robinson make that block before darting right back outside to where, believe it or not, Jimmy Graham has made a neat little downfield block and finish out the 13-yard run. And that's a question, Ian B. I'm not 100% sure how they're going to do against the Packers, but I can tell you with certainty they should do better than they were going to do had they not implemented these changes. Does that make sense? Like, for instance, another iteration that I want to go through, and this is actually going to have to take us all the way back to week 1. So, let me quickly dig this play up. I have to find an incompletion to Jimmy Graham. It's got to be this, right? It's got to be. And it is. Perfect. Okay, I can't believe we found it on first try. Pog, guys. Poggers. But so, you guys remember this play right here where Mitch threw an intermediate route to Jimmy Graham off of, you guessed it, a high, medium, low concept? Do we remember this? Where Jimmy Graham jumps, doesn't quite get it. Bummer, right? Well, the Bears iterate on that later in the Jacksonville game. I want to give us one more quick look at this. You're going to have Jimmy Graham running an out route. Darnell Mooney breaks a man's ankles way down the field, and I think it's Tariq Cohen comes out on the short route. But so at this point, So yeah, we've seen this play before. We know what happens. Even so, Mitch sits in the pocket. He sees that Jimmy Graham out route. He throws to it a little high, though Jimmy Graham also mistimes his jump, doesn't get his hands up near as high as he wants to, and the Bears don't convert. Well, later, as we can see, the Bears take the same concept and they iterate on it in this game. Let me pull up my notes to make sure I can remember where it is, and found it. Okay, so yes, got it. 2:49 of the third. So right here, after the Bears pick up the interception, this is this is the same exact play, but run from this set right here, where I want to show you guys what we're looking at and how it iterates off of it. So Jimmy Graham runs right down the field and catches it. Well, what's the difference, right? The difference is that in this case, Jimmy Graham is not running an out route. He's running an out and up with Javon Wims faking the same route and then getting the heck out of the way, right? So you're going to see the corner get totally burnt by Graham because he's waiting on this out route right here. And as Jimmy accelerates up the field, this guy, number 29, gets totally lost in terms of his footing and just falls down. I think it's because he didn't expect Jimmy Graham to be running an out and up on him. And credit to Mitch Trubisky, the throw is good enough, and Graham comes down with it. Credit, by the way, to Trubisky. One thing I want to call out: Leno does a decent job of ushering his man around the pocket, but credit to Trubisky. Something he's really struggled with is stepping up in the pocket, and in this specific rep, Leno has to take his guy a little wider than he wants to, and Trubisky steps up nicely, isn't bothered by it, and makes the throw with what looks kind of like a little bit of traffic. And sure, again, it's a little high, but we take these, especially when they're catchable. So you are like very, very solid. Now, it wasn't all rosy. I mean, there were some of these wrinkles that the Bears went after that I think kind of blew up in their face. The main one that we saw was this play to Cole Kmet, which I don't know if Mitch is very good at reading crossers, but he definitely didn't look good on this one. I'll show the play first, and then I'll go through what I think happened. I'm not 100% sure, but what I think happened on this play, where as you see, Mitch almost throws a nasty interception that I don't know if it would have turned the game around. The Bears were rolling at this point, but it definitely creates a 14-point swing here, as that might have gone for 6, but the Bears instead get a touchdown the other way. Now, what in the world happened? This is key. So the Bears are running. Let me remember which receivers are doing what, because I know the general action for it. Perfect. Okay, so you're going to see a whole lot of mishmash. Like, what in the world is going on here? Kmet, Wims, and Mooney all seem like they're in the same place. What in the world is up with this? This is, I think it's called Seattle. But basically, it's a concept that's going to do this. So right now, the Bears have identified that we're using Mooney's motion, that we are in, that we're in man. Right? We've got a man bracket right here. So chances are, F's in the chat for official Central Block City. Though, if you want to hear about Bears football, welcome to stick around. At this point, the Bears know they're in man. Let me recollect myself. And they've got Cole Kmet that they want to pull across the formation, because this Seattle route is basically a deep route with 2 people clearing out for it. Again, I think this is called Seattle, and then Mooney's going to go up. So the way this play is supposed to work is that Wims here is going to clear out his guy and the safety. Cole Kmet is going to just have to beat his guy in a foot race across the field, and Mooney is going to take his guy way, way, way down the field. And as we see the field expand a little bit, the idea is that Mitch hits Cole Kmet along the sidelines. But I think, for one reason or another, because the pocket actually isn't too bad, Mitch throws it early, because by the time Mitch releases the ball, the free safety that you see right here has not committed to Javon Wims or Darnell Mooney. So he can just read the play and attack the ball downfield. If Mitch had waited, which, again, telling a quarterback, like, oh, just wait around, try not to die, I totally get it. Like, maybe it wouldn't have worked out. But from what I can tell, had he held the safety a little bit longer, Kmet's going to end up with maybe not the greatest opportunity in the world, because he hasn't actually done all that great a job of separating from his man, but he's at least going to get a better shot down the field with the pocket of space that these two are creating. And as for your question, Shelly, there are actually some concepts, this being one of them, that are developed on what's called a max protect package. So you're going to see Holtz in here. That's because what you're about to see is a 7-man protection package. This is a lot of people refer to these things as shot plays, but basically there is one option, and it's the yardage. The only reason the only option on this play is for protection to hold, and that's it. And the Bears are going to make sure that happens by committing extra protection resources to the offensive line to make sure that that pocket holds. But again, I don't teach this play. Somebody talked about coaching. I'd love to get into it. By the way, I did want to break out the Club Dub shirt because you never know. If things go south, we may be looking at the last game of the Club Dub era, which RIP. But we'll figure it out. But the point is that I think if Trubisky holds this pocket, he's going to get a better shot at this Seattle route. And the throw's great. Like, all things told, the throw that he is letting loose is actually a good throw. That's not the problem. I just think it's early. And because it's early, the safety's able to make a play on it. Let me pull this out, okay? So, talk amongst yourselves as I get the Seattle big. Again, I'm using Bobby Peters' book on the Bears offense. I use this absolutely all the time. It has been my indoctrination into actually running a lot of, or seeing how a lot of these plays work. But I want to pull up the diagram for y'all so you see what this looks like. Yeah, it's not bad. So the Bears are running something similar to this top one, but they're pulling that route right here, the one that's supposed to go into the space, from a condensed formation across and using play action to cover it. So that's the idea. It's not a bad play. Even this one, this one doesn't have this one has a drag route check down, but it's still not you don't have to have a check down out of this. And the Bears know against cover one that they're going to get their chance, but Trubisky lets it go. I don't, coach. I definitely would be, or I could be interested in it, but we'll get there when we get there. The point is that I am almost sure that this play isn't supposed to let that throw go there. So I don't know if Trubisky got nervous, if he felt like his internal timer was going off, and if it was, gonna be honest, I get it. The Bears haven't asked Trubisky to throw a long developing throw in a very long time. He's normally getting the ball out within about 3 seconds, and in this specific set, he's asked to wait for a while. I don't blame him for potentially getting hesitant in a pocket that definitely wasn't kind to Nick Foles, but I think, going back one more time, that when you've got two crossing routes when you've got two clear out routes like what the Bears have with Wims and Mooney, you've got to wait for this safety to get out of the way. He's going to have to take one of them. This safety has to honor one of these deep shots, because if he doesn't, then obviously that could be a touchdown over the top, but you have to make him commit. And by the time that Trubisky lets this ball loose, oh, cool. Thank you so much for the donation, Derek. That is so unbelievably kind of y'all. And thank you so much because he got to actually demo the cool little streamer widget that we have. So that's super fun. But so the idea here is that if the Bears get that play, or if they get Kmet into that space, Trubisky should be able to complete the ball into that hole right there on the sidelines, which is super exciting. But yeah, that's at least what I'm seeing. Some of these are conditions. Oh yeah, you're donating, in case you can't tell on the bottom. I would love to figure out ways to incentivize not only me making more and better content, but also potentially doing more streams if you guys like these. So what I will be doing over the next couple days, I was going to do it tomorrow night, but then I realized that's New Year's Eve and nobody nobody wants that. So the day after New Year's Eve, Friday night, if we get $100, let's do a Packers preview stream where I will go through and try to figure out exactly what I would do or what I would suggest if the Bears want to try to pull out a Sunday afternoon, might be Sunday night miracle against the hated rivals. But so, anyways. What I would agree with you on Shell. So Shell Bullet here is saying, I feel like Nick can't play this type of run and play action because he's the stoic shotgun type. You're probably right. There are a whole bunch of times where I feel like the Bears have tried to roll out Nick Foles, and he can roll. He's not immobile, like he has feet and they run, but to say that he's athletic is a lie, and he's definitely much more functional in a setup where his line is holding for him a lot. And in this case, I would definitely say that Trubisky's playing much better in the system that they have for him, and credit to the entire offensive staff, credit to Bill Lazor, the play caller, for all that they are doing there. They have done a great job of turning things around. And true, we'll talk about what quarterback might be the best for this new system in the draft later. For now, we've got plenty of Jacksonville to go through, but the point is, as you guys are seeing, there is, I think, a lot to be excited about. That's not it. There are a whole lot of different wrinkles that the Bears showed throughout this game. I'll go one more and then we'll move on to a different topic because we've now spent about an hour. He rolls like a square wheel. That's a great way to put it. All right, we've now spent about an hour talking about this, or just like this one iteration on, or a bunch of multitudes of iterations on one Bears concept. But here, once again, the Bears are going to throw yet another iteration of that PA levels concept, where the whole point is, I keep using levels because the Bears like to threaten that they'll do it. They love to threaten that they're going to do the same thing over and over, and that's very McVay, to set up in the same formation all the time and suggest that suggest you're going to do the same thing over and over and over and then do something else. Well, here's the deal. What the Bears do on this play is that they send the motion man over, so he could very well be the leak out guy. Again, you're going to see the defense react to it like it's coming. You're going to see Miles Jack spin around, or if you notice, Miles is spinning around because he's expecting Mooney to come across from him right there. The high route's going out there, so where is the action on this play? In case you don't remember which one we're talking about, it's actually, I think, Cole Kmet leaking out behind the flow of the defense, who are going to literally flow themselves away from the play. So number 34 chases Mooney across as Miles Jack desperately tries to get in the way of what he thinks is a dig route coming across to Mooney, and only number 43 on the backside of the play has figured out that Kmet is streaking deep, and he is, I mean, wide open. And Trubisky has to deal with a little bit of pressure, which we can go over in a second. I'm sure something happened as far as like a tight end throwing a block or something. In fact, I think it's Holtz who loses his block, where I loved Holtz last year. Not 100% sure that Holtz is like the blocking tight end that we want, but it should be a touchdown. True, Trubisky doesn't hit the throw. It's a little too far. But the offense is there. Like, the schematic part of this offense opened the opportunity. It opened the door. That's what I think you can carry forward. Bears putting up points on the board, guys. They put up 41 points, and I would have loved for them to put up 48 with a play like this, but they nailed what they needed, and they showed that they can do more than what they even did. Again, the whole idea on plays like this. So ENB, you talked about folks being skeptical about whether this will work against a good defense. This is what you got to remember. What a good defense will do is that a safety like Darnell Savage, say this is Darnell Savage with Green Bay, Darnell Savage might be able to match feet a little bit better than... Oh my gosh, thank you so much for your donation. Absolutely every bit counts. Thank you. It's super cool hearing the little ping go off. I'm not going to lie. A lot of this streaming stuff is fairly new to me, and I worked on this over the last couple of days. So it's cool to see that it's as fun as it is. But yeah, anyways, Yibram, we're going to go over the defense. Don't you worry about it. Okay. You can't hear a ping? If you can't hear a ping, let me get the desktop audio flowing. So next time it shows up, you should be able to hear it. There's a nice little ringing sound. But anyways, the point here is that folks talk about like what will and won't work against a good defense. Well, remember, the Jacksonville Jaguars are not selling out to stop this stuff because they're bad. A whole lot of folks suggest that because something happens one way or another, that must be the only reason it works. Let me take you back on like why people were worried before I go back over that play again, on why it is that people said, including myself, like this stuff I'm not 100% certain it's going to work against a good defense. Like let me take you through exactly what's going on. And that's the thing, Patricio. I'm totally there. I'm totally willing to believe that Matt Nagy is a surprisingly good offensive brain that maybe doesn't need to call plays, and I'm okay with that. That is a fun idea, Tyler. I'll have to look into that. Soundboardy stuff would be a great time. But so let me see. I think this Jimmy Graham one should work. Guys, I'm totally pulling plays off my butt based on what I can tell, or like based on what shows up in the thing. Oh my gosh, Jonathan, thank you so much. That is super cool. I don't know why it's not showing up in the thing or in the donation itself. Obviously, I've got some wiring to do with Super Chat, but thank you so much. So anyways, if you guys take a look at this play, let me get the full screen working. You're going to see that the Bears are running the same low, medium, high route that we've talked about almost ad nauseum. So here's Jimmy Graham coming across. Here's Darnell Mooney on the backside. Here's, okay, Super Chat thing pinged now. Hooray. I'm glad that works. And then, of course, we've got the high route over here. So what people need to remember about, like, this won't work against a good defense is that the Bears had the easiest option wide open to them. Why in the world is this Texans linebacker vacating all this space for Jimmy Graham? That's an easy throw, as you can tell. The run and catch is just not difficult. Like, eventually somebody's going to take that away, right? Like, that's the idea. Eventually somebody rips that away from you. Well, Jacksonville actually tried to. Like, credit to what oh my gosh, thank you so much, Tyler. That is so unbelievably kind of you. Again, thank you guys so much. I literally can't thank you enough. This is super duper exciting. Let's keep going. But so the point is, and I'll run back to our neat little play here. The idea about like won't it work against a good defense is we'll get there, Elon. The idea is we're never going to hear the audio from the NFL because it just pops up here and there. The idea against like won't it work, one last time I'll say it, against a good defense is you just try to make sure that the plays that you are calling threaten multiple areas of the field. Because if you've only got one more touch, or if you only have one more, like one play type, people will take it away. Finally got that sentence out. But in this case, the Bears have hit the point where they can threaten. I think we're actually on the wrong play. No, we're not. Okay, so the Bears have hit the point where they are threatening a potential low, medium, high route. They're threatening this Kmet backside like hit up. Thank you so much, Murray. Thank you so much. We are really close to that Packers stream, and I'll absolutely put in the work. But so at this point, the Bears could threaten this side of the field. They could threaten this whole side of the field. They could hit the middle of the field. They could work short stuff. They could run it with David Montgomery. They could call a screen. They could work short and run up the field. Like this is what it means to be a good offense, in my opinion. Like what a good offense does that a bad offense can't is that it threatens the entire field. And sure, you could make the argument that if there's one limitation that Mitchell Trubisky has, it's that this 20-yard mark right here down the field, that's about the range of what we've got to work with. And if you don't believe me, this throw is, I wouldn't like call it deliberately and outright indicative. See, I knew we had the wrong play. That gum thing lied to me. Said it was the incompletion to Kmet. And I was like, I don't think we run that out of the I formation. But so, exactly like you're talking about, Nate, like the Bears are hitting the point where they can threaten all different kinds of the field, and that's what a good offense does. Like, when you're able to bait a defense into floating over this way before eventually throwing back over the top, you are in a good place. And if you take a look at this, the Jacksonville Jaguars right now are set up to stop the low, medium, high. Like, we've got a corner that's covering Wims downfield, and maybe Trubisky could hit this throw, but that seems like, or he doesn't tend to like the high route. You've got Miles Jack sitting in position to where if Mooney comes comes across this side, he might just have a shot, or he's going to have a shot at taking that pass away. You've got this defender right here waiting for the flat. Don't know why that came out of the highlighter. Or you've got him waiting in the flat for Holtz to potentially leak out and take this ball. What you don't have is anybody watching the backside, because they literally don't think the Bears will do it. And the difference between a good offense and a bad offense is that Mike Glennon doesn't even threaten the deep part of the field. He tried to, and it went okay. We'll go through again. We're going to go over defense in a little bit, but the point is that right now, yes, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, I totally understand. I get the concerns, and they are well-founded concerns. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to tell you that the Bears have turned into like the best offense ever. What I am trying to tell you is that these wrinkles added a lot more to the offense than met the eye, especially in the play action passing game specifically. So literally, it's all going to come down to one question. I will write it out, and you guys take a look, see if you can guess what I'm about to say. Can we run the ball well? If we can run the ball well, we actually ought to move the ball decently against the Packers. That's the big question here, because play action passing does a great job. Like, this play be darned, Trubisky gets this throw off, right? Play action does a great job of protecting the pocket. It really does, and everything at this point comes down to whether or not, and yeah, by the way, I was actually able to switch to my the mouse that I generally use for playing video games, so I'm a little bit more deft with this thing than usual. Thank you so much, John. We are $7 away from hitting a goal that I did not think we were going to hit, which is awesome. And in theory, Jonathan, like you're talking about, the Bears very well ought to be able to run the ball, because the Green Bay Packers are not very good at stopping it. And if we can run the ball, I think that they'll actually honor the Bears' play action attack. If we can't run the ball, the Bears may deviate away from it, because I get the impression that Nagy and the Bears staff thinks that you have to be running the ball well to use a lot of play action, though to argue against that credit on its own, the Bears used a ton of play action in the first half anyways, even though they weren't running the ball all that well, which is great. But yeah, the point here is that the Bears offense and what they're doing is great. I mean, sure, yeah, Tyrese, I don't know if you haven't seen it, but this play right here, play action shot, I'll play it one more time just so that we can see it, and it's an opportunity that the Bears had that they didn't cash in on, a rare one, and we'd love to see them cash in on it, but it's exciting to see that they're threatening the backside attack. And like Elon said, y'all are amazing. I am so excited that y'all have not only dropped in but are supporting me like you are. This is really special. Thank you so much. So it's not just the Bears play action offense that developed a little. Trubisky also took some steps forward and some steps back. Marcus, they run a lot of cover too. We can talk about that on the preview stream because it looks like it's coming up. What the Bears did on this play right here, this nice touchdown that I think is more than no worries, Tyrese. I'm not trying to take anything away from you. But anyways, What the Bears were able to do here was that Trubisky took a step forward from totally predetermining a lot of what he does, because traditionally he tends to say, okay, I'm going to roll out, I'm going to take one look at this guy, and then I'm going to fire it. Well, this is actually quite a deft little, I don't know if it's like a read as much as it's a click cue. Like, I don't know what the term to call it would be, or if this makes sense. And yeah, Ian B, we have to threaten the low, the middle, the high, the backside, the front side, everything. But yeah, on this point, Trubisky has a check read, is what I would call it, like a check off, where he sees. Let me take this one at a time. First step. The Bears use motion to determine that they're going in man. And that's key here, because once they see that they're in man, they know that they've got Allen Robinson running a slant and then Jimmy Graham sneaking in behind him, like some kind of Madden thing. So the reason that this matters is because Javon Wims is running a natural pick route for Mooney if the Jags are in zone. If they're in zone, the hope would be that he's going to pick off a defender and Mooney will sneak into the end zone. But if they're not running zone, which they aren't, they're running man, he's going to work that front side quick combination where he's going to take a look, make sure that this safety sticks to Robinson, and if by the grace of God Robinson comes open, great. But I don't think even Trubisky expects that. Instead, what he's waiting for is for that safety to commit, and as soon as he stays there, like he does, with now in this case, this zone defender shifting over, Trubisky checks direct off of him and moves over to Jimmy Graham, where there is a very small window to sit in on, or to fit this in on. Like, I have been somebody who is willing, as I'm sure you guys know, to criticize Trubisky when I think he has earned it, and I think he deserves the same level of praise when he deserves it. In this case, he totally does. He reads this play, he stays consistent on it, gets that ball nice, low, on target, and makes this truly easy for Jimmy Graham, who hauls in, I think, his 8th touchdown of the year, and is quickly starting to make that $9 million contract look like it might be worth it. And I'll take it at this point. But so, generally speaking, Shell Bullet asks, how do defenses adjust when the offense sends somebody in motion? It depends. In most zone coverage setups, this man, if he's in man coverage, is going to follow Mooney. So as you see here, he's actually going to track with him. That shows that they're in man coverage because that's his man. So he's moving across the formation. In other cases, like in the case of a zone coverage setup, if Mooney comes across like this guy wouldn't move. So in case you were curious about what that means, he would stay here because his zone assignment is probably this hook defense, and that's where he's got to stay. So he's not going to move, and everybody's going to change what they're doing. And Joe, you can change coverage, but if you were going to do that, you would either have to have a Saban style man match anyways, or you would have to call it out. And if you call it out, then the offense knows that they've got to change what to expect. Most of the time, the defense will just roll with what they have, because in a man setup, you're not expecting to beat the play, you're expecting to beat the play anyways with man-to-man work. But so in this setup, Trubisky does a great job of getting the ball out. And not only getting the ball out, but clicking off exactly what he has to do, and boom. Other things that I thought Trubisky did a really good job on that I want to quickly go over. He had a couple nice throws that didn't end up working out for him, which is a real shame. This goal line fade, look, I'm not about to be the guy who's like the biggest fan in the world of goal line fades, but I am, I'm old school football enough to say when you've got Allen Robinson over here one-on-one with this much space, yeah, I'll take it. I'll take the matchup. And Trubisky has done a really good job on these throws all year. He struggled with this in 2018 and 2019, but that ball's nice. Like, we'll go back over it one more time. I like where Trubisky puts it. I think Robinson's got a good shot at it, and I think he just kind of goofs it. It happens to everybody. Robinson has 100 catches this year, so he's going to have some drops. And this is one where I don't know if he needed to drop it. I'm not a receiver specialist. Pretty sure his foot comes down on the ground there. I would have loved to see Robinson come down with this, though I'm not going to kill Robinson for it. He made plenty for this throughout the game. Again, mistakes happen to everybody. Or maybe the throw could have been a little lower too. I'm not too upset about it, but I thought Trubisky did a pretty good job here, whether he checked into that or not. Chris, you're right. He might have thrown it out of bounds looking at it again, because that ball is relatively high, though it does look like when Robinson jumps for it, he jumps and then comes down a little bit, and then he's out of bounds. But again, we live, we learn, we move on. Another nice ball that actually still, believe it or not, another drop that I don't think was his fault was this one to Mooney. I'm not trying to, again, I don't want this to turn into A-Rob, or talk about whether A-Rob does or doesn't suck. I think we all know he doesn't, but that's one where I thought Trubisky did a good job. This one's another one. This is like a graduated dragon concept, which if you don't know what dragon is, it's one of Trubisky's favorite concepts, where you're going to see Miller run a quick little out route. In this case, it's a drag, hence dragon, and somebody is going to run a slant behind him. But in this case, it's less a slant. It's more a post, because posts are deeper, and we're going to see Trubisky actually place a ball pretty well here. So Miller bends this route outside, or in this, it's not dragon. In this case, he runs a quick little curl to draw this defender, but Mooney's post is a very short window throw that Trubisky has to time absolutely perfectly, and from there, whammo, he throws it. He gets that throw nice and low. Mooney has the opportunity to catch it and just doesn't come down with it. And if you don't believe me that it's catchable, let's take a look at the slow motion, because I looked at this myself. That's right in his gut. It is literally exactly where you want this ball. Credit to Mitch. I really thought, especially after last year, that his accuracy was not what you'd want it to be. But credit to him here. That's exactly the throw you want in a pocket that's a little noisier than you'd think it would be. And from there, he doesn't end up coming up with it. Credit to Mitch where credit is due. And exactly like you're talking about, DJ, if you pretty much throw it anywhere else, they're not going to get it. But he puts it in the perfect place while protecting his wide receiver. I will give him some serious credit there. And oh my gosh, you guys are amazing. 300 viewers. This is nutty. And we can keep going over some other stuff. The Bears also threw in some RPOs for the first time in a little while. They tend to come out of the second half with a quick little RPO, and just watch how wide open Robinson's going to get on this play, because it is almost nothing short of hilarious as bam, look at all that space. But from there, the last thing I want to cover is is that the Bears were also running the ball pretty well. And by the way, if you're enjoying the stream, do hit it with the hit us with the like button. I would love it. But so one last thing that I want to cover is that David Montgomery has been nothing short of nasty. He's been so much fun to watch, and he had a couple of plays throughout this game that were bananas. One more wrinkle, by the way, because I'm obsessed with showing you guys offensive scheme. I think that what the Bears are doing from an offensive schematic standpoint is rad. Take a look, by the way, at this. The Bears run levels. They get that high, they get that mid, they get that low route, they get that backside route. But what does Jax not cover? They don't cover Trubisky on the roll. So at this point, the Bears are able on the goal line to turn Mitch's legs into a weapon. He rumbles right on into the end zone. Definitely an ad over what Nick Foles would have been able to do, and we're here for that. At this point, I didn't even think about how it was kind of a smiley face. But so at this point, last thing that I want to throw out there are a couple of these gorgeous David Montgomery runs, where there's one right here. I don't know how Montgomery does. It's almost this cut is so dangerous, it's borderline illegal, as you're going to see Montgomery go from taking on two guys to rumbling forward for 8 yards. How in the world does he do this? You take a look to this. Tyrese, we already talked about it, but we can go back to it later. So remember how I've been talking about how once you get Montgomery ahead of steam, he just rolls? Well, take a look at this. He's got a little bit of a head of steam. He's one-on-one with Miles Jack right here. It doesn't get any more dead to rights than this, but he's going to plant that left foot hard and somehow get a cut down to his left as he leaves Jack in the dust, hits a stiff arm on a waiting defensive back. That guy's got no chance, and he plows forward. Let's watch it one more time. I get my Jackson good defender, DJ Jackson very good defender. Like this is the kind of stuff that reminds me that I am a Chicago fan and I'm not just all pass the ball. Because when I watch a running back do this, like hard right foot plant, ducks his head, gets through contact, and just plows his guy. Like this is fun, and this is the kind of thing that I don't know if the Bears are going to be able to do this against the Packers, but I think they can. I do think that Montgomery, if they can get to that point, will be able to roll with this. And it's funny because it's not just elusive. David Montgomery is an extremely powerful back. His contact balance is insane. He takes on guys at those levels like not a lot of guys that I've seen. Here's another example of Montgomery just plowing dudes plowing through dudes. But anyways, let's roll this. So yeah, I wanted to watch the run first so that I could remember which one it was. This is, believe it or not, a chicken salad run. David Montgomery did not used to be able to do this near as well as he did. Like, major credit to to what Montgomery has done and the way that he's developed. Because if you watch this play right here, the Bears do not get anything. Miles Jack is unblocked. Defender unblocked. Mustafa Bars do not get enough. Jermaine Ifedi has been beat on the inside badly. It is just David Montgomery with nowhere to go. But he does have somewhere to go. He plants that right foot, Tariq Cohen style. Now he's one-on-one against this, now he's one-on-one against this defensive back, and you actually see a little bit of speed there as he takes a great angle, gives him one little shove right there, and he is off. One more time to take it slow. As we watch this snap, you see Jermaine Ifedi just get whooshed as the guy goes around him. That takes that hole away. Whitehair can't quite get to the second level because the Bears actually have quite a lot to do. I don't think that they have enough guys to block. Yeah, Mitch sets a pick right there for David Montgomery, and he just rolls right on past it, and then David Montgomery is able to turn out some solid yardage. These are the kinds of things that make me say, okay, so the Bears could very well generate some yardage on the ground and help open up that dangerous play action attack, or at least that's the hope. So then there's these two back-to-back plays, which are awesome. And yeah, Pierce exploded right on through. At that point, I have no idea if the Jacksonville defense was tired or not. But here's another one where credit to Mustafa. Mustafa holds his line. Cody Whitehair's about to obliterate his guy. You get to see that. Alex Bars gets to the second level beautifully. Javon Wims keeps his guy out of the play long enough. Surprisingly good block from Charles Leno right there. As David Montgomery then takes this ball, he's gonna run it, he's gonna keep it outside. And let's just watch the play. Oh yeah, it's this cut. This one's another dirty, dangerous one. So David Montgomery plants his feet and just sends his runners by him, and from there he plows straight through number 58, a defensive lineman who should have him dead to rights, and picks up 12 yards the hard way, which is awesome. Again, we'll take one more look. The Bears offensive line does a really good job getting out. Remember, in outside zone, it's almost more important that you just engage your guy in some capacity rather than move them, because the idea is that you're moving quickly enough that you just have to get to them. And Montgomery takes advantage of that. He doesn't cut this straight up inside, but he does stay alive right there, cuts this run back, beats number 99, who's just fallen on the ground right there, and from there, keeps the run alive, plows through more contact, and just rumbles forward for a very, very solid 12 yards. And yeah, Bars does a really good job getting on that linebacker, which is exciting, because what he and Mustafa have been able to do, they are getting into position, and it's not always pretty. Here's an example. Here's a perfect example of what Mustafa is and isn't good at, I think, in one play. Mustafa gets annihilated. Let me back this up just a little bit so we can see it. Remember, Mustafa here is the center, but he is about to get annihilated, and then he saves it. There's a key difference there. He doesn't necessarily get great push on his guy, and he struggles with power. Like, powerful players like this will blast right through him, but what he does a good job of is replanting his feet and getting his shoulders around. So because he's got those shoulders around, while it's a very small lane, David can squeeze right on through this, and as we saw, he keeps his footing. He takes a little bit of balance work, but Montgomery's like balance is just outstanding, and he waltzes on into the end zone. And yeah, Mustafa I think he's a better pass blocker. Still struggles with power, but he can handle it a little bit better in pass blocking. But he does handle his business enough in this running play, as does Ifedi, who, again, also probably allows a little bit too much penetration, but Montgomery is able to cruise right on through. Massey is coming off IR, by the way. I'm seeing some comments about Bobby Massey. He's coming off of IR this week, as a matter of fact, so, we'll see if he plays. Part of me would almost... Guys, I don't know how to feel. I'm a big fan of offensive line chemistry. I think that's one of the hidden needs when it comes to offense. And so part of me would think, why wouldn't you dance with who brought you? I totally get switching to Bobby Massey, but does putting Bobby Massey in mean that you're also going to bump Alex Bars off and put Ifedi back in that starting lineup? Like, at that point, maybe you just bring him into the game and you let him stay there. And yes, Tyler, I do think Massey's a better tackle than Ifedi, but this isn't Madden. You can't necessarily just plug somebody into the lineup against the Packers and hope that makes everything better. I think the better answer might be bringing him on and or bringing him in and putting him in should somebody get hurt, which obviously you don't want to. A and B, I do think that's part of it. I really think, and I think I said this on a whole lot of the a whole lot of my streams, that the offensive line play was just atrocious for weeks and weeks and weeks. And no, the offense, like as it was set up, definitely wasn't helping anything, and I would never suggest that it was. By the way, as we talk, I think here is Trubisky quickly optioning off a quick pass into the flat against a blitz, which he used to really struggle with pressure, and there he turns around, quickly identifies that he's got a man open with a blitzer. For all I know, David Montgomery was yelling to him, and Montgomery's able to make a nice play after the catch. I guess it's also another Monty highlight, but it's a key that you see this. Trubisky, at this point, this is the first time he's even seen the defense, right? As soon as he turns around from play action, this is the moment that he scans the defense, and he quickly identifies that you've got a blitzer coming in his direction, and he needs to get that ball out to Montgomery. And hey, look, I'm not about to say that this is like the greatest mechanics ever, as I think it's a fadeaway jump pass, but the ball gets to where it needs to be, and Montgomery is able to scoot right on up the field and create a 24-yard gain. Like, that's the thing. So I think Steven up there in the chat, I've been wanting to get to your question for a little while. You said, what's the biggest thing Trubisky has improved on that we should be encouraged about? What I would say is that Trubisky has become much, much better when the offense... he's become much, much better when he knows what he's doing and has the chance to execute it. I don't think Trubisky plays well in helter-skelter setting. And if you want me to pull out my my reference there, you're going to know exactly what you're going to know exactly what I'm going to pull out. But when Trubisky's able to read the defense and go, okay, that's not there, okay, that's not there, okay, that is there, that's nice and easy, it's part of the plan, and he's able to option that out really nicely. He's also been surprisingly accurate. Like, to give Trubisky some credit, it's not his decision-making that's been the real issue, because the Bears have battened down that decision-making and made things a lot easier. I really think that things are sometimes as simple as this. It's a nice little 1-2 read, but it's still one of Trubisky's best throws of the day, where Trubisky, as we saw earlier, sees Robinson cut in. Trubisky then unleashes a nice little fastball. Some would call it easy. For Trubisky, I do think it's a nice step forward. And hey, who knows? Maybe Nagy's benching did actually help Trubisky. It's hard to tell. What I will tell you is that I think the situations we want to keep Mitch out of are I think that the situations we want to keep Mitch out of are the obvious, where we want to keep him from having the opportunity to kind of self-implode. I do think Trubisky has a loose hand on the ball. He fumbles a lot. Reminds me a lot of Cutler. Reminds me a lot of Daniel Jones. But this is the play. You guys know I had to show it at some point. Trubisky sees what he sees, you got to keep an eye on this corner of the end zone where there is tons of space. And what he sees as he rolls over is that Allen's man falls down, but he doesn't throw it immediately. He waits. Obviously, this isn't real time. And then he finally throws it. And by the time he throws it, suddenly there's a cloud of dudes just waiting for the ball. Somebody comes down with it, and it looks like, Mitch, what are you doing? That's a horrible interception. Well, take a look at it in real time. He scrambles right. He scrambles back to his left. Man falls down. Oh, now I got to throw it. And then it doesn't work out. Like these settings where he's thinking on his feet and he's trying to improvise, especially near the red zone, are where I've seen Trubisky struggle the most. They're exactly the situation that would make me shy away from naming him like the future quarterback. But at the moment, the Bears have figured out a way to put him in position to play pretty well. And I, for one, have been proven to be totally candid that Mitch Trubisky is not only a better quarterback than I thought he was in terms of when he's doing things right. Who knows? Maybe he's improved his mechanics, and that's been a big reason for the step forward. Maybe the offense has just been limited around him. Certainly, it's not exciting to see him miss that deep throw to Kmet, but in that short to medium range, Trubisky has been, I wouldn't say surgical, but he's been effective, and he's been able to put up tons of points. Like, I have no issue with it. I'm not about to say that there's anything that I have really wrong with it. The only thing that I would say is, the only thing that I would say at this point is that if the Bears can keep him out of the situations where he has to do more than the play asks him to, they should be pretty good. Thank you so much, Shell Bullet. That is so unbelievably kind of you. But so, that's my take on Trubisky. At this point, really all the offense is going to come down to is, can they keep that running threat alive? If we take a look at the stats here, the Bears ran the ball for Montgomery had 95 yards. Pierce picked up his clip. The Bears ran for over 100 yards. And don't get me wrong, like, I get it. It's volume stats, blah, 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 blah. I'm there. Like, I'm all about per play stuff too. But what I will say is that the Bears have put themselves in position here with this offense to be what's the word I'm looking for? Dynamic. They're not one dimensional. They can run the ball, they can pass the ball, they can do both successfully. And while they're not taking deep shots that are popping the top off of defenses, let's just appreciate what we have. And I think there's a whole different stream we could do probably after the Packers game. And somebody asked earlier, will I be streaming about it? Yes. What I will say is that the Bears, hey Allison, good to see you in the chat. But so what I will say is that the Bears offense right now has me thinking that I don't know what to do about Matt Nagy, because I do think, and you guys know that I have a soft spot for the offensive mind that is Matt Nagy, and frankly don't think his play calling is horrible, though I understand that Lazer's been tremendously better at establishing an identity, and since he came in the game, the execution went from one of the worst defenses that I had seen, or like offenses that I had seen, to one of the, I'm not going to call it the best, but I am going to say that all of a sudden when wide receivers are blocking on screens, when people are actually making plays like or outside of themselves, when all 11 guys are consistently moving in in the same direction, I'm here for it. It's the right moves for the moment, and I agree with all the people that have been saying it for a long doggone time, that it was a change that needed to happen, but at least it did happen, and I don't know whether to credit him, dock him for it taking so long, but I will say that this was the first offense that has done this long since 1965. 30-plus points. This is 4 weeks, 30-plus points. First time that the Bears have ever done that since 1965, and I think that deserves a little bit of credit. But so, anyways, folks are talking about the defense, and I agree. Like, let's talk about the defense. What's funny about this defense is that they had a very up and down day. I think you guys saw the same thing I did, right? What's interesting about this defense is that at any point they can pop off. They do have tons of talent to do a lot of, they have tons of talent with which they can dominate people. But at the same time, Not always, because they do have some defensive holes, and I think that one of the problems with offense versus defense is that you can kind of pick your matchup. There's one schematic thing that I think is best illustrated through offense or through using an offensive analogy, and then we'll talk about defense and why it is that you're seeing the Bears defense struggle. Like in terms of what's the answer here? Why is the defense struggling? I think I can explain it, or I think I can explain it a little bit and help you guys see it. But I got to use our own offense as an example. So I think this should be a decent play. Yes, it is. So offense in the NFL is dictated not by your weakest link, but by your strongest. In this case, for instance, the Bears have Allen Robinson here one-on-one with pretty much nobody near him. Because generally speaking, this cover one safety is going to sit up here, and unless this guy like Okie rolls over, Allen Robinson is on an island with a guy in press man, which I mean, good luck. Like, great job. Fun plan. I bet that's going to work. And it's a 3rd and 5. So with the ball right here, or it's not, it's actually right there. Let's get a better highlighter. There. The Bears are trying to get to there. That's it. So what are they going to do? The Bears are going to take their strongest link, Allen Robinson, and they're going to have him run a route that looks kind of like this. That's the best way to explain it. But he's just going to dance his man, move him backwards, and they're going to get the yardage where he dances, he curls, and they get it. Great. So good plan, worked out. But here's the thing. I think you guys are going to see exactly what I'm talking about, where the Bears offense only needs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys to make this play. That's it. Like, what does Montgomery do? I mean, I guess he helps on the protection, but not really anything. What do these two do? Absolutely nothing. Thank you guys so much. What an unbelievably kind donation. We have earned our stream. We're on it. I will get to work as soon as this one's over, prepping for it. Can't wait. But the point is that on offense, you can control the game. You can make sure that you dictate who you want to get the ball, which defender you're challenging, and it's exactly why Danny Trevathan was pulled into coverage as often as he was, is because that's what happens on offense. So what's the problem with the Bears defense? Well, it's that the Bears defense is not at that 2018 talent level where you had to pick between Bryce Callahan, Prince Mukamura, who's having a very good season, Kyle Fuller, Adrian Amos, who earned himself a $10 million contract for a reason, Eddie Jackson, Eddie Goldman, Akeem Hicks. I could go on and on, but when the Bears' weakest link in 2018 was Leonard Floyd, who's not a bad player, just didn't fit well in Chicago's slow turf, I am convinced, that's a really good defense. Like, you don't have a weakest link. And Sherrick McManus stood in well as the backup corner. You guys get the idea. What this means is that the Bears are dealing with a problem where when somebody wants to take something away, when somebody wants to, on some plays, they can dominate, they can beast. But on other plays, they get hurt. And it's primarily because when you have Kendall Vildor playing outside corner, I'm sure he's a great kid. He's a rookie. He's learning. I get it. I'm not trying to tank the guy. But I am going to tell you that he's a 5th-round rookie, and now he's our starting outside corner, which is not great news. On a play like this, very standard running play, Bears defensive line is actually one of the better run defense units in the league. They only allow 3 yards, right? At this point, the Bears defense isn't doing anything crazy bad, because on many plays they're going to do things really well. Roquan Smith is ascending. He's one of the best linebackers in football. I still don't know how I feel about the Pro Bowl snub, because there are a lot of very good very good linebackers. Linebackers are kind of like running backs, but what I will say is that Roquan is extremely good. I don't personally care whether he gets the hardware or not, because I'm hoping that he ends up on the All-Pro list. Certainly 2 interceptions help. But like, for instance, on this play, take a look at Akeem Hicks. He's taking on a double team. He holds it well. He gets his hands on his guy, Bilal Nichols, who's an ascending, nice little linebacker right there, or nice little defensive lineman, controls his man. Take one more look at it. I'll slow it down for us. All pro quad. I love that. But so Bilal Nichols is going to control his guy. He takes away this lane and then he cuts it back on the inside. Beautiful handwork. Akeem Hicks takes on that double team. Danny Trevathan closes things down on the backside, and the Bears stuff this run for 3 yards. So on any given play, they can do it right, like totally right. But also, it's an offensive league. So what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to be an offensive league? Well, in this case, what it means is that every once in a while, a quarterback and a wide receiver are going to make a really nice play. I talked about this on the end of my Madden stream, which occasionally I'll stream Madden. I can't wait. Might as well. Like, I think it's fun. And if you guys want me to do it on YouTube, I can. If you want me to do it on Twitch, I can. We can do a lot of different things. But the point is that on this play, you're going to see Jacksonville protect with everybody they have. Chip blocks all around. And take a look at DJ Chark right here. That's who you're looking at against Kyle Fuller. I want to back this play up just so that we can watch it, because I don't actually feel like I've given us a fair shot at seeing what's going on. But so on this play, you're going to see the Jaguars protect with everything they have up front as they isolate DJ Chark on Kyle Fuller, and credit to Glennon, in a bizarre fashion, he just makes a really good throw. Like, they are definitely not something I expected to see. If I was Pagano, I would have him doing this all the time too, but the Bears only blitz 4, and because they blitz 4, they don't create any pressure. And sure, it's great that the Bears have this covered, and he's covered, and they're covered, and the safety is, an extra mile deep, because defense. Sometimes cover 1 defenses do that. But Kyle Fuller's matched up against DJ Chark, the Jacksonville Jaguars' best receiver, and if you don't know who DJ Chark is, let me give you the summation. He is a younger Allen Robinson. Still needs to get there in terms of the route running chops, but a lot of it is there. And when he spins around on this ball, Glennon's way already throwing it. Like, he's already thrown it a long time ago, but he gets that ball nice and low to where only Chark can catch it. And if you take a look behind the line of scrimmage, or from here, you can see the Bears defense doesn't really get a chance. Both of the edge rushers get chipped, so they're nowhere near. The interior guys are busy trying to hold the pocket. And then Glennon, when he makes this throw, he places it again really nice, really low. Fuller's almost got a hand on it. It is as tight a window as you can get against Kyle Fuller. And I agree with you, JX. Less polished, probably more physically gifted. Youth definitely helps. But Chark makes the catch because sometimes that happens. In the NFL, every once in a while, the offensive guy is going to make the play. And that's the point that I'm trying to make here, is when people say it's an offensive league, it's that sometimes you're just going to get beat. And part of it has to do with the scheme. And again, I totally understand anybody saying that that Khalil Mack was missing. I get it. But also, it's extremely hard to make a play when you have to deal with a chip block on almost every play like that. Now the tackle's got his hands on him. Max still tries to get the edge, but at that point, Glennon's already released the ball. Like, I'm not trying to be some kind of stan. I think the best way to put it is that Khalil Mack is Pro Football Focus's highest graded edge rusher of the year, and we still haven't felt his impact. And that's because, in my opinion, modern offenses are getting better and better and better and better and better at getting the ball out. And so as they get better at getting the ball out, it puts pressure on edge rushers it basically means that edge rushers can't do their job. And their O-line definitely isn't that great. And like you're saying, DJ, offensive holding just doesn't exist the way that it used to. And so edge rusher right now is an extremely hard position to play. And I think that's exactly why you're seeing Vita Vea, Chris Jones, Aaron Donald, Akeem Hicks in 2018, these interior defensive linemen that are dominating football are quickly becoming the elite echelon of player. And if you don't believe me, again, think about the last time you saw an edge rusher take over the game the way that Chris Jones did. I can think of Nick Bosa's done it, Joey Bosa's done it occasionally. Now we hit it, Elon. We are good to go. But so we are going to see all that kind of stuff all over the place. But so from there, we then hit parts where the Bears defense, like we talked about, is not necessarily. Yeah, Chase is great. But so from there, the Bears defense definitely still makes mistakes. While I love Akeem Hicks, he talked in 2018 about if when he wants to gamble, he's allowed to gamble so long as he makes the play. And on this play in particular, not only does Gibson miss the tackle that you guys probably saw pretty plainly, but Akeem Hicks takes a gamble on this run that does not pay off. Let's slow it down. You'll see what I'm seeing. The Jags had been running this bit where Glennon would turn this way and the run would go that way. So I think Hicks tries to see it coming and guesses that with this turn they're probably running this way, but he's not. They're running straight at Hicks. And so when he dives inside like that, he completely gives away his running lane. And Roquan gets tagged with the tackle. And we've talked about Roquan. He's a coverage linebacker that hustles really well, but you have got to keep him clean when it comes to offensive linemen. So I'm not blaming him. Schematically speaking, this is exactly what you don't want. But at this point, the Jags have a fullback and somebody on Roquan, which ain't great as they try to get going. Almost all of this because Hicks took that gamble. So then the backside edge rusher Travis Gibson tries to run in and make the tackle, and he can't. So that's too bad. And then at that point, Kyle Fuller tries to stay in front of him. Good on you, Kyle Fuller, for slowing the guy down. And then, like somebody said, Roquan catching him on the backside. That is exactly what the young linebacker needs to do. But the point is that the Bears defense is definitely not flawless. And it's not all just because of talent issues, though, as I'm sure you guys probably remember, when Chuck Pagano decides that he's going to call a cover 4 set, that let's go ahead and walk through this. And there's some coverage qualms that I definitely have with Chuck Pagano, and if there's one play that I go like, we did what? It's this one. When it comes to the Bears defense and my issues with Chuck Pagano, it's that, so like we talked about, offensive holding isn't a thing anymore, right? So if offensive holding isn't a thing, or at least not near as often, what do you need to do? Well, you need to generate free rushers. That's what they're called. You need to basically create situations where you're going to get a guy who runs unblocked and therefore can't get held. But Pagano doesn't really do that. Honestly, Pagano's kind of allergic to rushing more than 4 rushers, which I don't know why. And we end up dropping Robert Quinn in coverage a lot more than I would like to, which is a huge weirdness. But even weirder is that on this play, the Bears run something more like, if I was going to describe Chuck Pagano's defensive philosophy, it's an absolutely classic cover 2-3-4 defense that prefers to drop in coverage and try to utilize the $40 million edge rushers, even though they have not been working. Like, I totally get the old school idea of, we got Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn on our team. Why aren't we just going to run at them with them and Hicks? Well, it hasn't worked yet, and we're at week 16. So unless you want to burn that candle all the way down to its end, let's change up what we're doing a little bit. But so what the main thing that I want to talk about here, have you guys seen the problem with this defense? Because what the Bears are going to do here is that they are going to drop Kyle Fuller and I think their safeties into what's called quarter half coverage, cover 6. So what that means is Kyle Fuller is going to be playing man match on this guy right here, I think that's Laviska Shenault, and he's also going to be covering all this deep area because Kyle Fuller's a really good corner and he can do that. Like, you can trust Kyle Fuller to cover that kind of zone. Eddie Jackson is going to sit back, he and Travis Gibson are going to cover anything weird that may come from Tyler Eifert or this receiver and make sure that middle is covered. But have you guys figured out the problem here? Remember how we talked about how DJ Chark is Jacksonville's best wide receiver? Have you noticed that he is on Vildor Island? Which I gotta tell you, Revis Island, you're not getting off of. Vildor Island, I think you can work with that. and as we saw in this game, when even Mike Glennon's making a fadeaway throw over your guy, I feel like you kind of did something wrong. Like, I think you guys agree. So there's a lot that could have been happening here. Like, I've heard some people saying that Gibson here had his eyes on Eifert, and that Jackson and him were both going to, that were both trying to cover. I'm laughing at all the Vildor Island jokes, but that they were trying to cover this right here and make sure that he didn't get anything, which is great and all. But I don't know why in the world, just being honest, that the Bears, namely Chuck, decided that with a rookie 5th-round corner on DJ Clark, we were going to line him up in man press without any safety help over the top. Like, what in the world? I'm okay with Jalen Johnson on this too. Like, why aren't you giving this guy any safety help? I'm okay with everything he's done here. Like, all he's done is usher his guy out to the sidelines and force a long throw over the top. If he's got safety help over the top, he has done his job. And even not doing the job, he's actually competing for the ball really well. Vildor's trying here, but this is, like, Jackson's fine. This is Gibson, Steven. Jackson's been getting a bad rap for being unproductive, which is okay. I get that. But Jackson has been in position in terms of coverage. He just doesn't get thrown at. No worries. That's the only reason I make the correction, is because I know Eddie Jackson's being paid a lot and Trevor's not so much. But so, exactly like you're saying, Ian B., at this point, we have put him on Vildor Island, and Chark makes a play. That's a beautiful contested catch. Vildor is trying to get in the middle of it, but he can't make enough of a difference over a bigger and better athlete. And that's that. I thought Chuck Pagano, JX LaFleur, I thought Chuck Pagano had a great defensive scheme against Tampa Bay specifically, and I do feel like it's decayed since then. I'm not 100% sure what's going on. I feel like against Carolina, this defense was covering out of its mind. They looked amazing, but now it feels like it's getting weaker and weaker, and part of me thinks that Gibson's at the center of it. I think Adrian Amos may have made may have made more of an impact than we wanted to, that may have made a bigger impact than we want to admit, but I don't know. I'd really have to look back at it. It just feels as if, I think actually, if I was going to point out one problem, I would say, the Carolina defensive performance was just out of this world. But so what I would say has probably become my least favorite thing. Let me find it in my notes. And if I can dig this up, we will all win. But so give me just a second. This one. Okay, that works. One thing that I think has been a little tough to watch, right, has been that Danny Trevathan has also fallen off. Remember how I started all this by talking about how the offense can dictate matchups? That's the entire reason we talked about Vildor Island, right? All these jokes come from the idea that if you want to attack Kindle Vildor with DJ Chark, you can in the world of offense. Well, one thing that's definitely made things hard for Pagano, just to give the guy some credit for what he's had to deal with, has been that this Bears defensive line seems to need its linebackers to assist when it comes to stopping the run, or else the run defense struggles. Just remember Ronald Jones from Tampa Bay torching us for like 8 carries and 95 yards or something like that. He was flying that day. No Goldman definitely makes a big difference too, like Stephen J says in the chat. But so the main reason that I talk about this is because this means that Danny Trevathan is on the field a lot. That actually may be Trevathan. But so Trevathan is on the field all the time, and Trevathan is starting to age a little bit, and he's not as sprightly as he once was. I'm not trying to come down on the guy. He's playing as well as he can, but in this play specifically, he gets turned around in zone coverage and allows something where I saw Miles Jack in the same game, do a little better. Just to be totally honest. Linebackers have to find their zone assignment, and then they have to track with them, which I totally understand. This is a very difficult assignment because Trevathan goes from having to shade over onto potentially this hook flat defender to actually having to switch assignments and take on this guy as I think that's Roquan, kicks out to the side, though Roquan may be down here, not 100% sure. But the point is, Trevathan's a hint slow to get around and ends up allowing this completion as he tries to go compete for the ball there, just off of a guess, and Vildor comes over and helps make the tackle alongside Trevathan. Either way, it's a 14-yard gain to the Jaguars, which, trust me, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are a stronger offense than that. When you can pick on your matchups, like we're kind of talking about, like when you can do that, almost any defense is going to have all of its weak spots tested. And at this point, those weak spots are showing up. Really, I think it is as simple as saying that in the modern NFL, just a guess off of my own intuition, You want an offense that can score as often as humanly possible and a defense that can get you some stops. The day and age of our defense is going to shut them out and our offense is going to grind out a win might be past us. The NFL nowadays is scoring an average of 25 points. So the 17-point performance here was actually pretty good and certainly below average. But the NFL as it is moving on, thank you, Brett. I totally agree. But so the NFL, like as it's moving away from this stuff, is hitting a point where your defense needs to have enough in it to take the ball away occasionally, one way or another, even if that just comes off of the offense making a mistake, and you don't want to necessarily rely on it as much. That's the big problem with the Bears right now, is that cap-wise, they're set up to be an incredible defense, but between aging pieces and being late in the season with fatigue and edge rushers not being near as impactful as any of us anticipated, because I think we can all agree that the offensive holding changes were not something that we saw coming. Fair enough. The Bears are hitting the point where, like you see here, John Jenkins, making veteran minimum, is going to show up and make a play on this run alongside Akeem Hicks off of a double team. Hicks eats the double there. The guy cuts it back. Jenkins swallows him up. And at that point, at that point, you start to wonder, why are we paying as much as we're paying when we don't have that Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill set up on offense that can make as big a difference as it does? That's the question that I am trying to answer. I want to answer it as honestly as I can alongside y'all. And yeah, I think Jenkins has been solid too. Not trying to dog on Jenkins. What I'm basically trying to say is that I think that Pagano, if he can pressure like Rodgers, that better things will happen than what happened last time, where the Bears had no pressure whatsoever. But I know a lot of people are like, we gotta blitz 6 guys, we gotta blitz 7 guys, we gotta go bananas. Hold up. If you send too many guys, Rodgers kills you, and that's what's happened all the time. And I agree, DJ. Look at the pressure that we put on Watson. We destroyed him, but their line is a lot worse than the Packers are. What I would do is I would try to find sneaky ways to blitz 5. I don't think you need Quinn in coverage. The Packers have way too many weapons. They are actually pretty stacked from an offensive talent perspective. But what the Bears defense can do is that I think they can try to use the Roquan as a blitzer and see if they can sneak him in. I'll take a look at what Rodgers has and hasn't done against the blitz to try to see if I can get a better perspective on that. What I can tell you is that I'm almost certain that what I'm about to say, is never going to get called. And yeah, Tanya on Danny will be a killer, but so will Devontae Adams on Danny. I'm not even an anti-Danny person, but we got to have him in the game to stop Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. So what are you gonna do? Okay, so right here, by the way, we're gonna take a look at Roquan's interception, because this won't happen. I would love to say that Rodgers would do this. He won't. This is a terrible read. What you're about to see is, DJ Chark, we've talked about him, he shows up a lot, is about to release inside. In case you're wondering how releases work, a wide receiver, especially when faced with a corner that has his hips square to the line of scrimmage like this, has to basically make the decision of, do you want to take this route down the sidelines, or do you want to take this inside? If you release inside, you're probably not running a go. You could release inside and try to bend it back around, and some will, but you're actively giving the corner less distance to travel to get to the same place. It's exactly that's a great way to lose, basically. So what mostly happens here in this case, why do I go over this, is because when you see DJ Chark release inside, check this out. Roquan is watching him. You can see his head is pointed right there. So what he sees is that Chark is going to release inside. So once he sees that, he registers and he says, okay, so what do I think Mike Glennon's going to do? He's thinking. And I think this is really cool. As he sinks back into his zone, he realizes, I bet this guy's going to run a dig route. or something like that, which would mean he'd run that route right there. Very common route, like a nice little dig post or something like that. So as Roquan sees Glennon, he watches his eyes fade towards Chark. You're going to see Roquan switch his stance up and start fading along with Chark. At this moment, Roquan is acting like he's got eyes in the back of his head. He is inside that bad draw. He is inside that passing lane clearly. So he is basically just sitting on this throw. Glennon has no need to get rid of it, but he does. And Roquan picks this ball off, and we don't need to talk about the fact that he just fumbles it trying to transfer it into his left hand. We don't need to talk about that. But it's a beautiful, beautiful coverage play. And like you're talking about, Shell, in the modern NFL, if there's one good news, so the bad news about the Bears defense, just to call it like it is, the bad news about the Bears defense is that in a world where edge rushers are starting to matter less and less, the fact that the Bears have Mack on a very long contract and Quinn on a relatively long contract, both of those contracts, very big contracts, tied up for a long time on a position that's fading out of style, isn't good. So that's not great, and they're old. But the best news about the Bears is that Roquan Smith right here, young, like very, very, very good coverage linebacker, if not one of the best in the NFL, are up there. Maybe the best, probably a stretch, is Cosmic. I love that. But so Roquan Smith is an extremely good zone coverage linebacker. He's a very good man coverage linebacker. He is the prototypical NFL modern linebacker that is pass first with the ability to chase and blow up screens. So this is the kind of play that you love to see from Roquan. It shows his development, and he caught the ball. It definitely doesn't hurt that I think it's Nichols. Yeah, Nichols gets a nice little bit of pressure there. Look at this. Check this out. Watch what he does here. This is a nice little underneath and then toss the hand back the other way as he gets some pressure on Glennon, who basically just panic throws the ball, and Roquan picks it off. It goes back to this is just a theory of mine, but I am a big believer in the idea that pressure often is the catalyst for interceptions. It's extremely rare for a quarterback to throw an interception on purpose, if that makes sense. At least based on what I have seen, the amount of guys that take a clean pocket and just chuck up an interception, I don't see it very often. But what I will tell you is that thankfully Nichols gets right Nichols gets right through, again, interior lineman creating pressure and developing, and just rips on through, boom, catches it. Nat, I am so sorry. The Patriots have had a rough season, but at least hopefully things can turn around. Obviously, Bill Belichick is great, I think he's one of the best, if not the best ever. Anyways, I'm more than happy to, JX. Probably not on this stream because we'll focus on Jacksonville here, but credit to Nichols for making the play that he's got. Ian B, I have sympathy for everybody. I'm a Bears fan. I love football. I am A-okay with it. Bad seasons are bad, and I knew a couple of Boston people, and I could talk about that later. I want to stick to the defense for now. But either way, Roquan makes a really nice play. Pressure creates an interception. Roquan comes down with it. Really scary moment, as you can see, where it looks like Roquan's shoulder gets bent underneath a pile, but he comes back. Now, it's funny watching the rest of this game because, as you probably know, the Bears come up with another play right here where they actually take the ball away yet again. And I think, what's so interesting about that is that they do this kind of on accident. So we see there that Roquan picks the tip. So now let's take a look. How did Trevathan see it? What did Trevathan do? Because it's Trevathan who gets the tip, right? What's so interesting is that based on what I can tell, the Jaguars run a halfback option route. So this running back is going to come up, he's going to read Roquan Smith directly in front of him, and he's either going to run this, he's going to run this, or he's going to run this. And I'm almost entirely going off of all the halfback reads that are once again in Bobby's book about the 2018 Bears offense, which is a great starting pack for knowing Matt Nagy. If he's still the coach, then it's well worth seeing, and if not, it's Bears. But so the point is that he's going to run this halfback option route, and he's going to turn it into a Texas route or an angle route, depending on what you want to call it. He's going to run it right here. The trouble is that Jacksonville also has a drag coming across the same exact place. So what's the deal? Glennon throws the Texas route. He lets that ball go. And the trouble is that Danny just so happens to be in the neighborhood. So he decides, hey, Roquan, I got your paper. Let me drop it off for you. Tips that ball into the air. Roquan pulls down his second interception of the game, and from there starts to take the ball back. You'll take it. But I do think it's funny that when I watch this play, this is Roquan doing a good job in coverage. Sure, actually kind of gets danced by the running back looking at it. And Glennon lets go of the ball, and thank goodness that Danny happens to be in the area, because once again, running backs are shifty sons of guns when you watch what he does here, but he puts a nice little move on Roquan there, and we're glad Danny's in the Danny is around. But so the one last play that exactly like you're saying, DeBears, like the key here to know is that not a ton of this actually carries to the Packers. And I need to go look at what in the world the Packers are doing and what the Bears inside their own defense can do to counter it. And by the way, just out of curiosity, have we had any buffering issues? I feel like we have internet issues on almost every stream. Has this been crisp and clear? Have we been rolling? Because I definitely made the shift from my laptop to my desktop to try to make sure that that we've got the best internet possible. That's great to hear. This is awesome. So hooray. We're in the right place. Again, I really do look back at this, and I think that the number one thing that the Bears can try to create are situations where they catch a free runner. Cashing in on free runners is the way you create sacks. And Steven, I'm actually going to take a look at the Carolina game. If we take a look at what happens here, the Bears still only blitz 4. Like, it's a huge bummer that they won't blitz 5 or more. I don't know why. DJ, thank you for that comment. Great to know. Certainly on this kind of grainy all-22 footage, you need as much quality as you can get. But so Danny is going to rush. You're going to see Khalil Mack take down, or he's actually going to press this tight end right here. He's in man coverage on him. And this running back, this is actually pretty funny. The running back is going to run out and get terrified of Khalil Mack. So he thinks Mack is coming on a rush, but he's not. Mack's in coverage because that's smart. So from there, Danny's going to work around, and he cashes in on a great opportunity that Mack has created, where the running back has now punched out to nobody because he's not actually going there, and Danny runs straight past the running back, looking back like, oh boy, I think I screwed up, and cashes in on a sack where it's impossible to get held. So good news for Trevathan. I love the little subtle celebration that he does there. I love that one. I think it's hilarious. But so the best thing that I can point out here is that the Bears sack that they got in this game, because I think they only got one, the only reason they got it is because they generated a free rusher. It's very hard to generate free rushers without at least some kind of blitz. And like, in my opinion, if there's one thing that Pagano can do, I don't know if it'll fix anything. I really have no idea if it'll fix anything. If you want me, like, we'll talk on Friday, it sure seems like, about Bears Packers and a little more of my worries, but like, the biggest trouble is that the Packers got whatever they wanted on or against Davante Adams, or like with Davante Adams, without Davante Adams, and they were able to do everything they wanted. Something's got to change. So if the Bears, for instance, threw more blitzes, threw more exotic packages at Rodgers, and they still get 40 hung on them, you know what? You tried. But hopefully they don't. And Generally speaking, DJ, you're right. Free rushers with a four-man rush are really good, or come off of a stunt or a twist or something. In this case, it comes off of a lot of fake coverage. So the Bears bluff a huge blitz, as you saw, and then they drop back to try to cover for it. And Roquan, if you can tell, does a really good job sitting in the zone while Vildor and Shelley get themselves sorted out. The safeties, and in this case, I think that's Kyle Fuller, the corner, do a good job of holding Chark as much as they can. Again, a lot of it's Roquan who sits who sits in that middle zone, which is huge. But so yeah, it's they're able to generate that free rusher. Thank goodness the running back screwed up and bit the simulated pressure, and they're able to get the sack. It is the only sack of the game against the 1 and now 14 Jacksonville Jaguars. I think this is so important, because the more we learn about football, the more we can evolve as fans and know what to ask for. No, the Bears don't need a fullback on offense, for instance. And on defense, they don't need better edge rushers. I think Khalil Mack is perfectly fine. He is, again, whatever you think of, maybe Quinn did, Nathan. I could be totally off there. But let's take a look, because you know what? It's just not that hard to search for sack. Looks like in the first quarter, we don't have a sack. In the second quarter, Trubisky got sacked. In the third quarter, that's our sack. I'm totally willing to be wrong. And then in the fourth quarter, nobody gets sacked. So no, it was our only sack of the game. But it's so key that we know that in this case, asking for better edge talent isn't the problem, and saying Khalil Mack's not doing enough probably isn't the problem either. Does that make sense? That it's okay to say, for instance, that you know what, Elon? That's a great question. Let's take a look. We can go, I like using Football Outsiders when I don't know what's going on. So let's go DVOA, offensive, not good based on what I know. Line 2020. So why don't we need a fullback, Brandon? That's a great question. The answer is because most of them aren't good enough to make a difference. It sounds so silly when you say it like that, but generally speaking, the best way that I can put it is, if you're going to use a fullback, you need to have a Kyle Juszczyk kind of player that's just able to totally separate himself from the rest of the pack. I'm hoping that I can remember my oh boy. Sure. Yeah, okay, give me back to the data. Thank heavens. Okay, so let's go with adjusted sack rate, which granted isn't the greatest metric in the world, but let's take a look, and it looks as if Jacksonville is 21st in that category, having allowed 38 sacks. So, generally speaking, thank you, Common. Would love to, I'll absolutely add more options on how to do that, and frankly, I'm promised to any patrons that watch this, I'm going to get better at actually providing the benefits. So a lot of this has been a learning process for me. Thank you so much. And I'm going to make this as good as I can. But so anyways, the primary reason those fullbacks are a waste of a spot is because generally they can't contribute in the passing game, meaning that and they're not very good runners. So all they do is rumble forward for 2 yards or block, and you can have a tight end do that. And JP Holtz is a great example of that. Kyle Juszczyk, on the other hand, is quick. He's good with the ball in his hands. He catches the ball well. So he's exactly the kind of player that you're okay using a roster spot on. And it's exactly why he makes a difference. Oh, man. Come on, Cosmo. Are you wanting love or not? This is my cat. But so it looks as if the Jacksonville offensive line is not the greatest line in the world at all. Definitely bottom half. And so I don't know if you have to pay. It seems like ENB, you have to get access through signing up for basically a membership, which maybe that's just so that they can track how many people actually use their data, which makes sense. But the point is that the Bears the Bears end up giving up that one, the Bears end up giving up that, or getting that one sack against an offensive line that's not very good, because remember that offenses nowadays are just really good at getting the ball out. Like, speaking totally seriously, they're very, very good at getting the ball out or stuffing edge rushers or chipping or whatever else they have to do to make noise. And in this case, oh man, I am so glad that I happened happened to click on this because yet another great play Bilal Nichols has made. He almost got his second pick of the year, which, given the fact that he's a defensive lineman, would have been nutty. I mean, he reads this screen like a book, and he's right there for this ball. This is nuts. Like, his recognition is becoming so strong, and I love seeing exactly what he's able to do. Like you're saying, Brandon, I felt bad for Nichols on this one. I'm glad he made the play. I mean, just the fact that he was there is enough for me as an evaluator, but obviously I would love to see him come down at the ball. Thankfully, the Bears beat the pants off of the the Jaguars anyways and didn't necessarily need it. Okay, Cosmo, we can't do the biting right now. But so, anyways, the Vikings game, I'm more than happy to go over another time because we were on holiday. Generally speaking, I thought the Bears' offense just led the way. Good for them. But so, a lot of people talking about firing Pagano. I'm in. Like, why not? I'm A-okay shuffling staff whenever I need to. There's nothing wrong with that in my eyes. I am not going to tub thump for a coordinator the way that I might say maybe we don't switch head coaches, even though at this moment, if Nagy is gone, if he's not gone, I'll live. I totally get it. Like 6-game losing streak, 5-1 start to the season, 3-game winning streak later down the road, first bunch of offense since 1965. Like there's good, there's bad, there's more good, there's more bad, and I get it. Like it goes in all directions. But in terms of potential head coaches, it's all going to depend on the GM. If Nagy goes, I don't know how Pace stays. Let's put it that way. But Pagano, to his credit, Jonathan, has led an 11-5 Colts team that was pretty stingy on defense despite having no talent at all, but I get what you mean. The best thing that Pagano's done is he coordinated the best defense in the NFL with the Ravens back in the day, like way back in the day, don't quite remember the year. One thing, by the way, that was really interesting about this game, I don't think Patterson was hurt, but he didn't do anything. Like, he really didn't do much at all, which is interesting. But I don't think phasing him out did anything bad, and for all we know, it really may come down to the fact that, like we've talked about for weeks, execution was a problem, and Patterson's always been an execution issue waiting to happen, so the Bears took him out. I did not mean to show that again. Not anti-Mitch here, I promise. But so the point is that, yeah, talking about defensive stuff, I would love to see the Bears shift their attitude. The one thing that I will say is that the Bears' talent fits an older defense. Like, there is a day and age where the Bears' talent would have made for an extremely good defense, and that day and age may have been as recent as 2015 or 2018. But right now, without having the two-gap interior defensive lineman that allows for two coverage linebackers to work, and one of those coverage linebackers maybe being a year too old, and one of our safeties being just okay, and seeing that that our corners are not necessarily like the best in football. Jalen Johnson's coming along. I love that pick. There's almost nothing that Jalen Johnson can do to be bad at this point, but he's not what Prince Amukamara was in 2018 as a surprisingly good lockdown man corner that really only gave up the occasional defensive pass interference while denying quite a few things. And sure, Elon, I'm happy to show it. So basically, at the very start of the game, funnily enough, it doesn't look like the Bears or the Jags had switched the scoreboard from the Titans. So they went the first couple plays playing the Titans instead of the Bears. And I don't actually quite know when they flipped it, but it's still the Titans, and now it's finally the Bears about a minute into the game. So if you're wondering, it looks like no fans equals a little bit of laziness from the folks in the stadium. Hot take. But so, like you're saying, Cosmic, successful defenses come after you. A great example is Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is one of the highest blitzing teams in football. Let's see if we can find some stats on that. NFL team blitz percentage 2020. Pro Football Reference. Do they really have this? That's awesome. It doesn't look like they do. We will team advanced defense. Blitz percentage. Let's sort. So the best, or the teams that are blitzing the most NFL, it's a mixed bag. The Jets defense isn't horrible. The Bills are pretty solid. It actually does. It looks like a whole bunch of some of the best defenses, and here we are, the Bears, down at the bottom. Pro Football Reference is just all over the place. But so when you take a look at this lineup, it does look like the Brandon, that's pretty good. It does look as if there is a correlation between a lot of good defense and a lot of heavy blitzing. And if we sort by hurry percentage, I bet we're going to see, the Bears are in the bottom half in that case, which is not great. Whereas even, let's see, Arizona, who does not have a ton of offensive or defensive talent, is hurrying about 3% more plays than we are, and I would not be surprised if a lot of that comes down to their absolutely torrid blitz percentage. So let's take a look at, do they have something simple like PPG? I'm sure they do. Points for. That'll do. When you look at the points being scored, the Bears are doing a pretty good job. Like that part's not so bad. It's not as if they're giving up tons and tons of points, but they definitely are not blitzing like they were. The trouble, ENB, with comparing to 2018, just calling it like it is that the Bears the Bears in 2018 almost never blitzed because they didn't have to. Like, the Bears in 2018, it wasn't even Eddie Goldman. It was talking, or like I'm talking about Mack and Hicks and Floyd, but mostly Mack and Hicks. What they were able to do was generate pressure by themselves, along with Goldman, just as the front four on most plays. Occasionally they'd send Trevathan. Occasionally they might send Roquan Smith, and as you guys saw, he got a whole bunch of sacks in 2018, but it was rare. Just like with what Pagano's doing. In fact, let's take a look. We can do that. Let's go to 2018. And let's take a look at the blitz percentage. Wouldn't be surprised if it's not all that high either. It's still about 23 or 20%. So if we take a look and duplicate it, it's actually the same, almost. Like, or within reason, it's the same as what we've got here. The difference is that it doesn't work like it used to. As a matter of fact, Pagano is technically about a percentile point more aggressive than Vic Fangio was. The trouble is that edge rushers just aren't generating the pressure that they used to. A-Song, the answer, how many holding calls in 2018 versus 2020? The answer is about 50% less in 2020 across the NFL. Way less holding, like way less holding is being called, and a lot of that is leading to less pressure from the edge, because when the tackle can hold a little bit, that speed rush threat kind of goes away, and when that threat goes away, it really, like, what is it? It takes away what edge rushers can do and their effectiveness. But so like you're saying, Nate, more holding is getting gotten away with because of less calls. In fact, the holding is worse. Let's see. There's no way we can find it immediately, right? Y'all remember that play where Khalil Mack gets absolutely murdered by the tight ends? Let's get that paused. It's a random Giants play. I think it's from like the second quarter. DJ, I think they love the outcome. I think they love it. More offense. Like, what they want is more of that crazy, was it Kansas City and Los Angeles from a year ago in Mexico, where they scored about 1 billion points? Like, there must have been, 130 points that got scored in that game? They loved it. Everybody, all the media members were like, this is ratings gold. We eat this stuff up. This is great. But like you guys are seeing, for us, that's bad. That's really bad, in fact. Like, for the Bears in particular, it's not this one. From the Bears, or for the Bears in particular, this is really bad news, because we have $40 million soaked up in edge rushing specifically. And it might be this one. Did I find it? Let's see. Take a look at Khalil Mack, friends. Does this look like holding to you? Because it isn't called. It's not called at all. Yeah, okay, there it is. This is a good example of what it looks like in the modern NFL. Seriously, I mean, it's not that bad. Like, or it's one of the worst examples. It's not that bad. It's very bad. It's an egregious example, like Elon said, but it's not a flag in today's NFL. And when you do that, like, how is Khalil Mack supposed to get pressure? Like, how is anybody supposed to get onto, or how's anybody supposed to get at the quarterback when you do this? And of course there are, Green Bay. There are no calls for us. Charles Leno started holding more, and that's why y'all started complaining about him a little less. It's because he's a-okay getting away with holds, and they're helping the Bears, just like Jermaine Ifedi and so on and so forth. Like, people aren't getting pressure. Khalil Mack isn't injuring people. I think a lot of this comes from the fact in 2019 we had a whole bunch of quarterbacks get lost for injury. Jimmy Garoppolo went down. Aaron Rodgers went down. Like, a whole bunch of quarterbacks got lost for injury, and nowadays they just want Aaron Rodgers to finish the season. They want Tom Brady to finish the season. Matt Ryan finish the season. Matt Stafford finish the season. Chicago, nobody cares. Like, that's the attitude, is that if you don't have a quarterback, then too bad. And it's one of those things where at this point I don't know what to say. I get it. Like, it's fun to say, like, refs 28, Bears 20. But, like, guys, let's be honest. When the rules change, you have to change the game. Like, when the rules shift, you have got to shift with them. And at this moment, the Bears have so much pent up in edge rushing that I understand why it is Pagano's having trouble, because he can't generate pressure with a team that is supposed to generate pressure through their edge rushers. It's a devil's gambit. Like, it's a devil's choice between, do you blitz more and not make use of the assets that you're supposed to use, or do you blitz less, cover more, like you originally planned, like you taught all throughout camp, or and potentially risk upsetting the defense, not upsetting like mentally, upsetting like the balance, the rhythm and whatnot of a defense that you've been coaching all throughout the season, even though it's kind of not working. Like, that's the trouble that I'm seeing here with Pagano. Like we're seeing, modern NFL defenses are blitzing like banana pancakes. They are going absolutely nutty with blitzes, and a lot of it's working. I mean, it's at least some of the most successful defenses in football. I actually think it just needs different talent. Like, what the Bears probably need, and I hate saying this because it's going to take a little bit. Like, it's just me. This is totally me just guessing, right? Is that the Bears need to shift to a much more Belichickian defense that puts almost all of its emphasis on cover corners, like Jalen Johnson and Kyle Fuller. That part is good. That part works. But then you got to generate pressure with blitzing a lot, and blitzing in different ways. The more that you can blitz, the more that you can at least try to confuse people, the better, I think. And hopefully that's something that the Bears could try to work with, because that's at least what they did in New England, is that they ran stunts and twits and blitzes, and they just went for it, and they anticipated that Brady would be able to bail them out. The Bears don't have their Brady, but the big part, like you're talking about, Jonathan, I think needing creative blitzing with 5 in some cases, and occasionally 6. Be willing to take that risk. Like somebody said, adapt or die. Be willing to give up some yardage if it means potentially like making a play, because you have got to eventually make plays, or you're going to eventually get crushed. At least that has been my theme overall. But so I don't know. That's at least what I'd try. The biggest problem that I'm seeing right now, and I think you guys are seeing it too, is that the Bears defense is underwhelming at the moment, and it doesn't feel like there's a great solution. Like, or at least right now, when we look at what's going on with this Bears defense, the answer is it stops and it starts, and sometimes it just kind of is what it is, because the defense as it's set up, like Khalil Mack at the moment is a better run stuffer than he is a pass rusher, and I don't think that's anything he's doing wrong. Like, the moments that they leave him one-on-one, he beats his man, the guy throws it. I wish I had a solid example that I could just pop out, like that Giants example with holding, because I get what you're saying, Adrian, that Pagano's more at fault. Pagano's trying to play an old, outdated defense, at least based on the way the NFL's calling holding, and either he needs to get with it, like somebody said with John Fox, and blitz a little more, because that's the NFL's tempo right now, or the Bears are going to get picked apart because they can't generate any pressure. I think the defense was doing better in the beginning part of the season because the Bears were covering everything. The coverage schemes that they were using were unique. They were a little different. Like Derek says, the secondary was healthier, but also people didn't quite know what the Bears were doing. In this case, or at this moment, it's getting figured out a little bit. And that happens. Like, people kind of tried to figure out the 2018 defense. By the way, here's another example of Hicks not really holding his lane, unfortunately, as he lets somebody skate right across from him. And Travis Gibson does not have a very good snap himself. And the Jaguars are able to crack off their second solid run of the game, and then they don't really get anything. But like we were kind of talking about, at this point, what I am at least seeing is that not only do you have to blitz up the middle, Nate, you got to figure out whatever you can do, whether simulating pressure and dropping off and so on and so forth. Like, I think I wouldn't be surprised if he's tired, DJ, because he looks like it in this play specifically, that the Bears need to find ways to generate those free rushers that New England has made so famous as they let go of edge rushers all the time, cyclically, because they've been kind of getting ready for this over time. Obviously, the Patriots right now are not a great example because they're kind of a talentless bunch of guys, but it's a more Belichickian concept, this idea that the number one thing you got to do is deny their best receiver the ball, and our rushes, like you're saying, Shell, could serve to be more creative. Overall, the biggest problem that I have is that if I was going to tell you, like, what's wrong with the defense, it's the foundation and the underpinning of that defense. It's not just, hey, this guy's not playing very well. Like, it's not as simple as that. It's not, Vildor's not good. It's not, Skrine isn't good. Or Screen. It's not, Trevathan's slow in coverage. It's all of them and the fact that we can't generate any pressure. And because we can't generate any pressure, we end up getting killed in coverage, and Danny Trevathan has to cover for longer than we thought he did, and Travis Gibson has to become a coverage specialist, and so on and so forth. I think the other problem here is that because the Bears aren't generating interior pressure, guys, I'm going to go ahead and just give you a quick warning. We are about to look at the Robert Tonyan touchdown. So if you don't want to watch our our Bears get scored on again, avert your eyes. But the trouble is that and Jonathan, I'm excited about the preview. I think this is winning. I think that this is a winnable game because it is a what do we call it? Like, it's a rivalry game. It's the end of the season. It's Matt Nagy's last stand. Going for club dub here. Like, it's winnable, especially if the offense can keep pace. But the Bears defense is going to have to show something that they haven't shown on film yet. Like, I am going to have to dig something up and say, like, okay, so let's see. The Packers seem like they're weak here or something like that. Whereas, they can, or we're going to have to find something. Probably we're not going to end up looking at a bunch of Bears tape and saying, hey, they were good at this, because on a play like this, for instance, the Bears don't get much pressure as Roquan Smith breaks it off and he gets as close as somebody's going to get, but Robert Tonyan just understands Tanyan's down here. And he's running something that looks like the play action and then whirls back around, just like we saw Mooney do way earlier in the stream. But Rodgers is able to throw with a clean pocket primarily because of the play action over here that literally takes the entire defensive line and soaks them away. And thank goodness Khalil Mack's in coverage, am I right? But Rodgers flicks his wrist, like somebody's saying in the chat, finds Tonyan downfield because they know how Eddie Jackson's going to react to the situation. And as much as it's like Eddie gets burnt here, I mean, sure, but where Eddie gets burnt is a very, very good route as Eddie is trying to stop Tonyan on this over route right here, because Rodgers could easily just flick his wrist and get it over there too. And instead, when Tonyan turns around, he's able to victimize a Bears secondary that truly never sees it coming, as Kyle doesn't even know he's turned because he got across the side of him, and Eddie was ready for that crosser to try to pick it off, make a play, and ends up getting burnt by his own desire to get the Bears back in the game. That's not great. But so when you say who is the second man, who are you talking about, Elon? Just to make sure that you mean Devontae Adams right here? And And why didn't Kyle drop back? Because Kyle is holding this zone right here because it's sort of a Tampa 2 zone kind of thing. But so hopefully, like you're talking about, John, the Packers or the Bears can hold the Packers under 30. If it's me, this is Kyle, Eddie, Kyle, and my guess is it can't be Roquan, so it's got to be Trevathan. And they're playing a Tampa 2 defense, which is there, and there. So that's generally the idea of these things. No, just kidding. It's Gibson. But so yeah, that's what we got. But so I'll take a look at what's going on or what happened on those games. Sometimes guys come out and they're just flat. The trouble is, I don't think the Packers are going to be flat against the Bears. Call me crazy. I think that they could that they're definitely liable to be much stronger overall than the Bears. I think they're going to be stronger against the Bears than they are against the Panthers, because Adrian, maybe there's a chance they underestimate us, but with the first seed on the line, they need this to take a week off, which unfortunately is a big deal. Like that's a big deal to them. They want that week off. They want to be able to take their time to take that 1 seed, which means that they're going to be playing their butts off, as I understand it, and that's not great news. Like, I would have taken the free win against the Packers and go play the Saints, but we may not have such luck. So what the Bears are going to be hoping for, we will find out, or I will find out, and I will report back to you, because there's a lot when it comes to this game that I am worried about. One thing that I can tell you the Packers did a really good job of is that they used their running attack. It's literally only gotten better, as well as the very McVay-style condensed sets that we see the Bears using to keep Danny Trevathan on the field. If he's not on the field right now, I'm gonna laugh out loud. But so there he is. They kept Danny Trevathan on the field because the Bears needed him in run support. So with that, they're able to dictate the matchups. They're able to Pagano decides to do weird things like dropping Mack and Quinn into coverage, which, as you can see, ends up genius on this play. Quinn does so much to take away, and the Bears end up getting scored on. But yeah, that's the thing. I don't necessarily think that the Packers are going to run all over the Bears. I really don't. What I am going to say is that they threaten to do so. It's just like what the Bears hope to do against Green Bay. So at this point, I think somebody already said it. Just going off because we're at 2 minutes, or we're at about 2.5 hours, so we can start to close up. Are there any final questions? I will tell you that based on what I remember from Green Bay and what I have seen from this Bears offense, hilariously enough, in this game, which is potentially Matt Nagy's last stand, I do think the Bears are going to have to, yes, Tyler, we did, so we will be doing a stream, and I've got to figure out how to get Super Chat wired up with the donation milestone. Sorry about that. Thank you to absolutely everybody who donated, which is awesome. But so I think the Bears are going to have to score. They're going to have to score 30 or more, right? They're probably going to have to score 30 plus, and they're going to have to hold the Packers to less than that. Obviously, that's how winning works. Is that the Bears are going to have to hold them to less points than they score. But my guess is, and we have FRP or ENB. Miles, I do. You can find my Twitter. Elon, you still here? Post it. That would be a huge favor to me. But so the trouble is that the Bears are an offensively led team right now. Like, credit to them, right? If we take a look at this Jacksonville tale of the tape, the biggest thing that I can see is Timothy, that's a great question. Let me get to that in a second. So the best part of the best part about watching this Bears team recently is that their offense has taken control of the team's destiny. So the Bears, for instance, they get this great play from Roquan, which is rad. The Bears go from 13 or maybe 17-10 down to 10-10, back up to 13-10. So they go in with a lead, but then they come out, they immediately score. They then force a turnover, or they don't force a turnover, they force a punt. The Bears then follow that up with a score. They force a turnover, they score. They get stopped, they score. And not only do they score, but they score on a drive where they missed out on this. Like, this is 1st and 10. I only show it to make this point. Bears miss on 1st and 10, and looking at it again, Trubisky gets cranked. Like, does he pick up a penalty? No, he doesn't. He gets popped right there. So, tough throw, doesn't work out. But then immediately afterwards, it's 4th and 1, and the Bears go for it, which, rad to them. I'm all about aggressive play calling. They come out here ready to plant the dagger, and they do so. And then I think right after, or 2 plays after that, we get this neat little Artavis Pierce run, which is fun. He looks like he's explosive. It makes me excited to see not only more of this Wildcat thing. It's so corny, by the way. I think this Wildcat is hilarious, and I love it. I don't even know if it necessarily works, but it's working well enough. It puts solid runners out there. And the weird thing, by the way, about that face mask, you're totally right that it's a privilege call, that he didn't get called, but it is weird going back, because part of me makes it feel like if... I wish I had a football helmet so that I could demonstrate, but I feel like face masks almost entirely have to do with snapback on the head, and Trubisky's head didn't move based on what I saw. Maybe it tilted a little bit. Maybe I have to go back and watch. I totally hear you. But I got the impression that I saw 2 people grab their hands around the face mask, and then they didn't actually pull. And that may be the primary reason that they let it go, even though I totally agree, super weird play. Totally looked like a face mask all over the place. But yeah, so Artavis Pierce, picks this up and so on and so forth. The point is that the Bears have now, if you go back and think about it, they've gone from 13 to 10 to a 28-point 4-drive rally. They went score, 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 score. And that's actually funnier than it should be. But so the point is that the Bears offense has started taking over this team, which hilariously enough is all we ever wanted, right? That's what's been so funny about trying to evaluate Nagy, is I totally agree with anybody that says Nagy's a sham and all he is a guy that's been held up by his defense. That used to be true, but right now the defense is not holding up its end of the bargain in the way that it used to, and the offense throughout this Vikings game, if there's one takeaway to have from this Vikings game, it's that the offense won it. The defense did not. And I'm not trying to shame the defense when I say that. It's more to say that Kirk Cousins and the Packers Kirk Cousins and the Vikings were rolling. Every time the Bears went up, like you see, 20-10, they punched it right back in, pushed it to 20-17. The Bears offense had to keep scoring, and they did. They kept scoring, including in the 4th quarter, and ended up putting the game away. This to me was the biggest deal that I think, or that you could look at. And sure, it included some dicey stuff, let's say. 30-17, no, I don't love the fact that we threw an interception on the goal line. You guys have probably seen it before. I'm not trying to necessarily crush the guy or something, but sure, we're probably always going to have to live through some weird stuff from Trubisky. This is 2 weeks in a row with an end zone interception. You know what I mean? It happens. But we did end up getting the stop, ENB. I'm just proud of the fact that the Bears were able to come out and ice the game away with solid enough offense overall that we led this, or we led the game the entire time, and the defense did help land the plane. Totally agree. I remembered this game wrong, gonna be totally candid, but at the very least the offense is having a much bigger role than they did in a lot of the games, especially with I think the offense played a big role in the Tampa Bay game. I think they could have played an even bigger role, but the defense played undoubtedly a huge role in that one and the Carolina game. It's funny, those 2 games, I would say, were the most classic Bears. Those were the games that the Bears were supposed to be winning. The Saints, another classic Bears game, where we held the Saints to 23, and we ground out 23 points, and at that point we went to overtime, and Roquan could have won the game. Too bad it didn't work out. Not trying to kill the guy, but of course the defense would have had to win the game, and it would have been so Chicago. The point is that this Bears team that we're seeing right now is new. This Bears team is surprisingly good on offense, and the defense is making noise, but this is the kind of stuff where where they were that's sort of the idea, or this is the kind of stuff that we haven't seen in a while. This kind of lead from the front with the offense approach, and a lot of it has to do with the way Sam Mustipher's playing, with the way Alex Bars is filling in, with the way they've unlocked David Montgomery, with what that has done for Trubisky, with some of Trubisky's confidence improvements on his own. Like, there's a lot of factors here, and it's not just 10, and it's not just the O-line, and it's not just this, and it's not just that. Montgomery's getting to shine. I love this play because he phases through contact so unbelievably well, and it's awesome. And I agree, Jonathan. I do think that the Bears need to keep Allen Robinson. He's great. Like, really, really, really good. That's a topic for its own stream. But the point is, it's funny, ENB, we did... Let me go back to that. ENB says, I hope we see this against the Packers. And maybe you forget, but the Bears started the game off with a 57-yard run. Like, this is where, if the Bears can come and they can stay true to what they've been doing, tight formations, challenge the defense, force them to stop your run, I'm okay with it not resulting in a touchdown. It's funny you say that. Like, Dave Montgomery's not going to gas you down for a ton of touchdowns, but we've known that for a long darn time. I am A-okay with the fact that David Montgomery chugged this down for 57 yards, because I don't think we've had a 57-yard passing play yet. So our run game is our explosive, which is hilarious. But so, yeah, we've definitely got to keep the threat there. The passing game ought to turn up, but that's something that we can talk about more in the preview stream. Jonathan, it's funny you talk about Mustipher and Mustipher and Bars. I could do a whole thing on them. You know what? Okay, hang on. For those of you that stuck around long enough, I just want to go through. Did you hear him knock something down? I don't actually know what he knocked down, but thankfully, I thought for a second to turn the stream off, and I don't think it did. So that works out. Hello, kitty. But so. I do want to walk through a little bit of like the I'm calling it the Sam Mustipher conundrum, because there is a lot of things that you could call, thank you, Ian B. There's a lot of things that you could call rookie mistakes, but a lot of things that are also kind of just worth worrying about, right? Like, if you do want to see Sam Mustipher as the starter of the future, there are a couple of questions that he needs to answer, and the primary one is his strength. He seems to really struggle when blockers engage him directly. You're going to take a look. Remember, we're talking about the center, Sam Mustipher. And if you watch what happens with his blocker right here, he's about to get basically driven into oblivion, and this is ultimately going to blow up the run. This happened probably 4 times on the carries that the Bears did have, and it's not great. But so I plan on it, or ENB. I want to, because I know Lester knows a lot more about line than I do. Again, you're watching Sam right here. And I don't want this to take away from a lot of what he does on other downs, but on this play in particular, like, his passing game work is quite good. His run game work, at best, he's going to stall the man, and at worst, he's going to get blown back. It looks like a linebacker, DJ, but it's a lineman. So he's been lining up this whole game. And to be totally fair, he gave Bars and Mustipher fits, but both Bars and Mustipher both struggle with this. Like, they both have issues with power, which is why, if you've heard me on Twitter sounding harsh on Sam when I say, like, he seems like good depth, at the moment I am, at the moment, if they can answer this, like, if they have a good offseason and they put on a little bit of weight and the Bears want to still run outside zone, they absolutely deserve a shot at the starting role. I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but what I will say is that Cody Whitehair is better about moving his man and not getting moved, whereas Mustipher tries not to get moved and hopes he can't. Let me find some others, because unfortunately, this wasn't the only play, and that one loses 2. In this play right here, I think we're only going to get 1, partially because, and Mustipher is going to kind of get his lunch ate. So we'll watch this, and then we'll switch right to the tight angle. But you can see him there get blown backwards and basically ripped right through. I think it might be by 58 again, as a matter of fact. It is not. It's 98. It's a different player right here, and he is going to torch Mustipher, turn that run around, and ultimately the Bears only get 1 yard out of it. Elon, I never sleep. I'm always watching football. Always, always, 100% of the time. Ask my wife. No, actually, that was like the 2019 season. All those videos got made because I didn't sleep. Can't do that again. But so, I want to point out that, like, this isn't a Mustafa only problem. Like, to be totally fair, to be 1,000% fair. Again, this is the Kmet goal line handoff, and if Fady botches his assignment to let Cole get punched on through, but it's not as if Mustafa is the only one who makes some of these mistakes. But then again, the Trubisky fumble that we had later in the game, you better believe you take a guess exactly why it happens. Watch number 67 up front. It's one of his only passing mistakes that I've really seen him make this season, but he allows this sack almost on his own. And not Rashad Kusai, but a good guess. Always a good guess, as long as he's in the game. What he's going to do is, I think he expects the run action, play action that's on this play to do more, but the defensive lineman right there slips directly by him. Alex Bars turns to chase. Because Bars leaves, Whitehair's man slips right off of him. Mitch has to make a move. He makes a move, thank heavens for mobility, faces directly into the linebacker that he doesn't have to deal with. He punches the ball out because Mitch's ball security is not ideal. He fumbles here and there, and thankfully Mitch falls on it, or else that could have been quite the bad play and a real here we go again moment. Mustafa's not guarding Whitehair in that case, but when Mustafa blows his assignment and then turns back around instead of just trying to do his best to try to help Whitehair out with his guy, you end up with two linemen that aren't doing anything, and yeah, not good. Not good at all in that setting. But so at this point, when I look at Mustafa, it was not a good day for him. I'll show one more because I do have 4 plays marked down for him, and you guys have been so kind to stay on stream, and you paid for you hit the donation goal on our first attempt ever. You guys are incredible. I gotta come up with more stuff to do, and you guys, if you have ideas, please feel free to throw stuff at me that you want to see more of, and I will absolutely put the donation goal up because I'm all about it. But so let me show you. So 303. This one, the Bears still get 4 yards off of it, but I do want to take a look and remember what Mustafa does and doesn't do. Again, we are looking at the center, number 67. But so, yes, he gets blown backwards, and Monty makes a nice cut to pull 4 yards off of it. John, you had better believe I will do a Madden Bears franchise. In fact, I was planning on doing it already, so there you go. But so, Mustafa in this setting, he tries to move his man, he ends up getting moved, or maybe not, or even worse, is that this play is running to the left. So if you're wondering, like, what's the worry? What's the harm? What has he ever done wrong? Well, here's the deal, right? The Bears are running an outside zone play, meaning that they're trying to get this way. I draw these lines because literally this is how outside zone works. Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you, DJ. But so the outside zone generally works where you're trying to take these lanes, meaning that Mustafa, as you can tell, has this guy right here. And all he's got to do in this moment is he's just got to hold that guy enough that he doesn't have control of this lane. As long as Mustafa works his way, not to this guy right here, that arrow's kind of bad, as long as he works himself to like this guy's shoulder and Monty can run this way, they are in good position. And good night, Slim Jim. I will see you soon. But he can't. Instead, Monty has to cut it back because the lineman has control over Mustafa. I'd compliment Bilal Nichols, so I have to compliment him. And what Mustafa also doesn't do a great job of taking it away, or taking the backside angle away from him. So effectively, this defensive lineman is able to play both lanes on Mustafa, and that's something you want to see. One play that I will show, or like, again, I want to make it absolutely plain that he is not the only person that was making mistakes. That's not fair, nor is it true. Like, if you take a look at Whitehair right here, who I think is the Bears' best lineman at the moment, he gets clapped on this play, totally gets beat by his guy. Let me take a look right here. We'll get the behind the camera look, and if you watch, you will see Whitehair right there. He's going to get beat by his man on this one, where he goes a little too far inside and just can't quite get enough of him. And as Mustipher and Bars get pushed a little too deep and Monty has to cut it up, Whitehair's man comes straight through and makes the play. But at least Whitehair is able to make up for it with plays like, let me find one. Oh yeah, this is good. The Montgomery touchdown that we went over earlier right here for 6 yards. And yeah, that's the thing, Jonathan. Montgomery's ability not just to create missed tackles, but to like change direction has been awesome. And in this play, like where Whitehair's making up for it is that he can move guys when he has to. Because right there, if you saw it, he blasts Miles Jack and creates the lane by himself. Again, like Whitehair right there. Take a look as he cruises through, ISOs his man, gives him the old crank, and as Mustipher and Ifedi hold their own, he's able to cruise right on in for a touchdown. So I need to make this clear. Like, that's what we need to see. We need to see these strength issues resolve themselves. And who knows, maybe due to his youth, if Sam Mustipher takes a second and takes an off season, builds up his strength, he may come back like James Daniels, who went from looking like a 21-year-old pretty good lineman to really good and really big. Did y'all see that like James Daniels picture? Because he looked like a beast. But we'll have to see how it all works. That's my I think Mustipher has looked pretty doggone good on a lot of the pass plays that we see. Like, I hate using the commit one. I just know that it's a decent example of what I'm looking for here. You watch pass plays like this, and he does a very good job. He's heady in terms of like where he needs to be, and sure, he needs some double team help here and there. But one thing that Sam has been really, really good at is being in the right place at the right time. He's a smart, intelligent center that does have a lot going for him, especially in the mental department. So if he can fix those strength issues, he may very well be a starting center going forward. And worst case scenario, he's very good depth, which is not a problem on its own. You take a look here, Mustipher. Let's watch Sam here. Bars had a really good game too. I don't want that actually to like go by the wayside, but Bars in that moment holds his guy just enough. You know, in the olden days, they might have called what Bars does here holding, but remember, holding is legal now. So an arm bar like that is perfectly fine, and he gets the ball off. But so modern NFL, that's a good block. But if it was me, Patricio, I would try Daniels at right guard. See how it works. See what happens in free agency. Figure that out. You got to put Daniels somewhere. But once you figure out that, you go from there. Anyways, guys, we have hit this awesome point. I've got a mod going to bed, so that's honestly as good a time as, yeah, exactly, Jonathan. Hold your heart out. So I will be back to you guys on Friday night. You guys pop in the chat a time you think works for you, because I can kind of go whenever on Friday night. But until then, hopefully you enjoyed the stream. Hopefully you learned something about what is and isn't exciting about the Bears going forward. Hopefully the defense surprises us a little bit. I would love to see that. Thank you guys so much for the contributions you made. I am 100% in for any I'm in for any donation goals and anything. This Packers stream was just an idea that I had, and I love doing stuff like that, so that's great. And then what is this? One more time, Elon, can we plug the Discord link? Because if you do like talking football and you like the folks that you're meeting in the stream chat, there's a cool Discord that's been set up, and I've loved what it's become so far. If you're enjoying this kind of conversation, you can keep that going there, as well as plenty of other random little activities that always pop up. You guys are great. Super fun seeing you Awesome that we get to talk about it on a Bears win. Glad I didn't have to talk about it on my phone. I hope you guys like the new setup. Any and all feedback is encouraged. And until next time, Bears fans, bear down, and thanks so much for bearing with me.